Respected learned delegates from across country and continent and academia, a very good evening to one and all. I am Masihullah Bangalore, and I feel privileged to welcome you all on the behalf of the organizing committee of Nanoland Limited and its Tomorrow News. I thank you all for sparing your precious time and being part of this webinar organized by Nanoland Limited, its Tomorrow News, and co-organized by LD College of Engineering, Gujarat Technological University, Xavier's Research Foundation. This webinar is sponsored by MQA, Weissmaker, Reinzer, Aqua, Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite. Today we have gathered to share our knowledge and ideas with our peers from diverse scientific research fields on learning its tomorrow, frozen or molten Earth. Now, moving forward, I would like to brief about our organizers and co-organizers and sponsors. Nanoland Limited. Nanoland Limited is an eminent research organization based in Ahmedabad. They are mainly focused on climate change, clean energy, and sustainable development. They have a pool of research associates with diverse backgrounds affiliated with them to work day and night studying the various parameters of Earth and its components. It's Tomorrow News. It's Tomorrow News is an online weather news channel featuring mainly related to the news of climate change, weather, and scientific documentaries. It hosts interviews, podcasts with various eminent persons with scientific backgrounds. LD College of Engineering. Lalbhai Dalpatbhai College of Engineering, Ahmedabad is a premier government engineering institute in Gujarat set with the objectives of imparting higher education, research, and training in various fields of engineering and technology. The institute is affiliated with Gujarat Technological University, Ahmedabad, and is administered by the Department of Technical Education, the Government of Gujarat. LD College of Engineering was established on the 20th of June 1948 as one of the first few engineering colleges in India. Xavier Research Foundation. The Xavier Research Foundation Trust runs the Loyola Center for Research and Development, an autonomous institute which was established in the year of 1987 in College Ahmedabad. Its goal is to do research in science and technology and the humanities. The center not only employs scientific staff dedicated to research, but also provides infrastructural support and expertise to students working on the frontline research fields in the environmental microbiology and plant biotechnology. The mission of the center is to target grassroots communities on the fringe of our economy. And through innovation, entrepreneurship, training, and hand-holding, setup is moving towards the production of units, medium, small, and micro levels. The next we have is Gujarat Technological University. Gujarat Technological University is a premier academic and research institution that has driven new ways of thinking since its 2007 founding, established by the government of Gujarat. Today, Gujarat Technological University is an intellectual destination that draws inspired scholars to its campus, keeping GTU at the nexus of ideas that challenge and change the world. GTU is a state university with 486 affiliated colleges in its fold, operating across the state of Gujarat through its 5 zones at Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, Vallabh Rajkot, and Surat. The university has about 400,000 students enrolled in a large number of diploma, undergraduate, postgraduate programs, along with a robust doctoral program. Next, we have Weissmaker. Weissmaker Eco Private Limited is a prominent entity involved in manufacturing of its variant products, like prominent electromagnetic water conditioner that helps in softening water by removing the ions that make the water hard, and in most cases, calcium and magnesium ions. This Weissmaker water conditioner comes with an easy installation, consumes less power, and is easily customizable. The next we have is Reinzer Aqua. Reinzer Aqua is one of the type of expert in cleaning solar panels automatically, easing human efforts, thus increasing the efficiency of solar panels by cleaning the dust and dirt with cost-effective technique. The next we have is MQA. MQA is actually a product of Weissmaker. Next we have is Rotary Club of India Elite. Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite is an active club of Rotary international organization having played important role in various emerging issues and helps to find a solution by serving the society. The club is actively working on various sectors including environment, education, and women's healthcare development. This club has been serving its since 2010 with various prominent personalities from the city of Ahmedabad. We thank and extend our full support to the Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite for their noble cause. I extend a big thank you to our organizers, our co-organizers, for facilitating this event. Now, let us have the pleasure of listening to the opening remarks. May I request Dr. Rajeshkumar Acharya, Scientific Advisor at Nanoland, to deliver a welcome address. Dr. Acharya is a leading patent attorney. He's a doctorate in science, specifically in chemistry. He's engaged in a lot of research work on climate change. He has consistently guided the Research Association in speculation of the past of what normal individual would think. So now over to you, Dr. Acharya.
Thank you, Mashallah, for your very nice words. Good evening. I still don't understand whether should I tell good evening, good morning, good afternoon, because all the speakers and all audience, it is from different part of the world. I'll say good time, all of you. First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for joining the webinar on It's Tomorrow, Frozen or Molten Earth. I feel great proud to say that this conference has been organized by It's Tomorrow News and Nanoland, a prominent research organization in the field of climate change, renewable energy, and sustainable development. The organization facilitates such webinar to enlighten young minds and promote the participation of the general and scientific audience at all levels. A very warm welcome to all the renowned speakers and delegates who took out their valuable time and joined us today to be a part of this international, scientific, very intelligent webinar. We are honored to have all of you with us. This time, the theme of this webinar is based upon the title of climate change. It is a very hot topic nowadays. It is being organized to help the general audience and students to understand the future of the Earth. Whether the temperature will fall to very critical level, freezing everything, or will it rise drastically to melt our planet? This remains a question always. It will focus on the views of the experts from across the globe and with diverse backgrounds to put forth their hypothetical analysis. Now, whenever we hear the word climate change, automatically synonyms comes to our mind: global warming. Just check whether this is a right synonyms for climate change. Many articles we hear, we read that there was an ice age. And people are talking that after a few thousand years, the earth will melt. I think it is all hypothetical. I'll give you the reason. We'll have to churn our mind and decide whether it will be our planet, our beloved planet Earth, will be melting or freezing tomorrow. Our solar system, Sun, is having 9 or 10 planets. Still, we are not sure whether there are 9 planets or 10 planets. So when all the planets came out from the Sun, all were gaseous, very hot. This is no doubt, everybody agrees on that. Then it started cooling. So it was the first 9th planet cooled down. And there was a temperature range for living things on the 9th planet before millions years ago. It cooled down, cooled down, cooled down, and then that temperature range came on the 8th planet where living was possible. 9th was very cold. 8th planet had that temperature where living was possible. Then again, the sun is spreading the energy all the time and becoming cooler and cooler. Then it came to 7th, then it came to 6th, 5th, 4th. Now we are on the Earth, and this temperature range is on the Earth. This is a very natural science that sun is disseminating energy, and the same temperature maybe tomorrow on the 2nd planet, and we'll be very cold. It sounds something reasonable. We are talking that many glaciers are melting because of global warming. Nobody has mentioned how many glaciers are there and how many new glaciers are being formed every year. We are just talking only about glaciers are melting. We are talking that our ocean, in this ocean, there is a rise of the level of the ocean because of global warming. People are saying like that. There are two things. Or this warming of the ocean water, maybe a little bit from the solar system. And second, there are many, many volcanoes inside the ocean. And water is seeping all the time to the center of the earth. And center of earth is made up of lava. It is seeping inside, it is coming fast. And lava becomes cold day by day. And we are saying that the level of ocean is increasing not because of the sun, but maybe because of the center of the earth. Then let us turn our mind, let us think again what is happening and what will be its tomorrow, whether it will be frozen or molten earth. With all those words, and we have the galaxy of very intelligent scientists over here as the speakers, I extremely delighted to introduce our eminent speaker, Mr. Fitrian Ardiansyah from Indonesia, Mr. Azhan Hassan from Qatar, Ms. Diana Yeshuraj from Dubai, Dr. Narayan Dakal from USA, Ms. Kanak Bokan from Germany, Ms. Ita Tiara from Indonesia, Dr. Manorama Mohanty from Ahmedabad, Yuhi Bansil from Delhi. She is from climate change consultant at United Nations Environment Program. And we have Dr. Bharat Maitreya, who is a professor in Department of Botany, Bioinformatics and Climate Change from Gujarat University. Actually, we were expecting one very eminent scientist and Vice Chancellor of Gujarat University, Dr. Himanshu Pandya, as our chief guest. But I think maybe because of some little problem, he couldn't come in time, but we are expecting him at any time. Also, I would like to thank LD College of Engineering, Gujarat Technology University, and Xavier Research Foundation for organizing the event. And I would also like to thank Wagemaster, Eraser Aqua, Aqua, and the Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Light for sponsoring the event. I welcome again all of you, and really we are very, very eager and anxious to have your learned speech. And we hope that when we leave this webinar, we'll be having a very good bundle of knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Acharya. Your thought-provoking welcome address set a perfect platform for our speakers to deliver their presentations in the area of climate change. Thank you once again, sir. We did not receive any update from Dr. Himanshu Pandya, our chief guest. However, we hope that he might be joining with us a little later. And so I'm going to introduce him nevertheless. So let me take this pleasure of introducing our honorable chief guest, Dr. Himanshu Pandya. Dr. Pandya is a Vice Chancellor of Gujarat University. He's done his PhD in botany with the areas of specialization in vivo and in vitro studies on physiological and biochemical parameters. He has teaching experience for more than 27 years. At present, he is a professor and head of Department of Biochemistry and Forensic Science, Gujarat University. Dr. Pandya has organized more than 310 academic programs and more than 180 publications of national and international repute. He has 16 major projects from DST, DBT, UGC, MOES, SAC, ISRO, and GOI, etc. to his credit, and 5 academic foreign visits to United States of America, Canada, Italy, Switzerland, and the UK. He has also guided more than 120 students for their master's and research degrees. A Gujarat University alumnus, Dr. Pandya has worked as a chairman, dean, registrar, director, coordinator, head, member, and third-party evaluator for many executive and statutory bodies of national and internationally acclaimed academia. Dr. Himanshu Pandya has received President's Award for National Service Scheme by Honorable President of India, Shri Ramnath Kovindji, on the behalf of Gujarat University at Rashtrapati Bhavan, New Delhi. So we hope that he joins us soon enough if his urgent matter that he's attending gets resolved. So moving forward, we have our first speaker of the webinar. So it's going to be my honor to introduce Mr. Fitrian Ardiansyah. Mr. Ardiansyah is a global envoy for nature-based solutions for IDH-Sustainable Trade Initiative. He's also an executive chairman and founder of Yayasan IDH in Indonesia and country representative of IDH-Sustainable Trade Initiative in Malaysia. He has more than 22 years of experience in the field of ecological and environmental economics, natural resource management, integrated spatial and land use planning, sustainable commodities, sustainable forest management, as well as climate change and energy. His geographical coverage includes areas like Indonesia, Australia, and the Asia Pacific. Over to you, Mr. Fitrian Ardiansyah.
I'm so honored to be here, distinguished speakers. But first and foremost, I would like to thank Nanoland, Dr. Rajeshkumar Acharya, and colleagues there for giving me this opportunity. If you allow me to share my screen, I hope you can see my screen now. I am from IDH, Sustainable Trade Initiative. We are a global organizations focusing in transforming the supply chains and commodities across the globes, mostly coming from agriculture, forestry, and fishery sectors. So before I touch on the challenges as well as possible solutions when it comes to climate change, especially coming from the agriculture, fishery, and forestry sectors. I would like to also emphasize, to add what Dr. Rajesh Acharya mentioned earlier, that it is not only about climate change that we are facing currently. There are plenty of challenges when it comes to issues that human civilizations is facing. And I think experts and global scientists have covered this and coined this as a planetary boundary. And the two challenges that we are quite significantly facing right now, in addition to the climate crisis, is of course biodiversity or nature crisis. That is why it is quite important. This year, for instance, we are going to have two big events, two negotiations at the global level, hosted by the UN. Of course, one is COP26 in Glasgow, talking about or negotiating about climate change and how each individual country would contribute to address and provide such solutions. And of course, then another COP on CBD, Conventions on Biological Diversity in Kunming in China. So I think it is clear we can't just focus on what human would face, but also biodiversity, because we also depend on biodiversity. Agriculture cannot thrive without biodiversity. Our soil will not be fertile without good biodiversity and so forth. So it is quite clear. But if we are zooming to a local level, for instance, we are even facing quite tremendous challenges. When it comes to environmental impacts, deforestation, desertifications, soil erosion, fires, for instance, happening across the globe, including in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, and many others. And at the same time, how can we face or address these challenges if we are also having still, to cope issues related to our social components, which is like how farmers are still poor, their productivity is still low, even with the demand from the global market for sustainability products, for green products, green investment, for instance, how farmers cannot meet this kind of criteria or demand. So there's a huge imbalance when it comes to addressing the global challenge, but also looking at our own challenges within countries, including in Indonesia, India, and many other developing countries. So that is why IDH, working together with our private sector partners, we're focusing in almost 50 different countries, focusing on key commodities that are globally and also locally traded, spices, for instance, in India, or tea, and Indonesia, for instance, palm oil, timber, and coffee, and many others. The reasons are quite simple. If we cannot help our own farmers, our own villagers, to help themselves to improve their productivity, to improve their profitability, to improve their business model, we cannot address climate change as a global challenge. We have to be able to support ourselves first, to increase our own resilience. Then I think we can talk about addressing the global challenge. In the context of Indonesia, the one that I'm residing now, of course, plenty of activities across Indonesia that we are also doing. The business model that we have been done is that we can only support and we can only invest and help farmers or supply chain companies if there are co-investment coming from the private sector as well. So we can provide investment from us and also from other donors or investors, but the private sector also still have to contribute, because at the end of the day, they need to be showing that they also having that kind of appetite to support farmers. Nevertheless, I think the biggest challenge of all is to really support millions of farmers, and can we develop a certain appropriate business model that can help not only one or two, but 100,000, even million of farmers. So it is why we are focusing on what we call aggregators. Can we support the development of business model of our cooperatives, farmer cooperatives, or farmers organizations? Because without the ability to increase the capacity or capability of these aggregators, they cannot negotiate price, for instance. They cannot negotiate standard and quality with off-takers. They cannot have good contracts with off-takers. They cannot meet the sustainability standards. In return, also addressing climate change. How can they protect forest ecosystem and whatever surrounding areas that are quite important to contribute to climate change adaptation and mitigation if they cannot fulfill their own economic activities or economic demand, for instance. So that is clear. But since the get-go, we usually connect the farmers or aggregators, so farmers organization, with able and also willing off-takers, the buyers, as well as the financiers. I think without the demand and also without the finance, it will be so much difficult. So again, it is about developing the right business model, incubating it, and then linking that to market and also finance. And of course, we can't just do everything. We have to focus on the key items that we have to address when it comes to also contributing to climate challenge. In our view, it's about livelihood of farmers, environmental protection, which is, let's say, forests, water, and many others, living wages or living income, reducing agrochemical, because it will also contribute to the water set and so on, and of course, gender. Plenty of things that we can do, but I think if I can squeeze into several different things. One, we need to work together with the local government to develop their own policies, so that the policy can then provide eventually good signals to both private sector and investors to chip in, because I think money coming from the government, it will not be sufficient. We usually call it this green growth plan or green economic development. And if this is integrated into their development planning and budgeting, it will be also quite strongly then linked to the appetite and also the plan from the private sector and also investors. And of course, after that, at the local level, we have to push for what we call agreement or compact, the agreement between smallholders or farmers, local traders, of course, local government and NGOs, for instance, so that they can agree on what we call improving productivity, strengthening protections, as well as inclusions in terms of how many smallholders that we need to incorporate. And then, of course, developing the prototype for business and investment model. So that usually are the key for, our key interventions for our programs in several different countries. Just to show you some of the examples, because the time is in India, for instance, we have been doing a number of different things, but I can give you one good example. I think in Andhra Pradesh, especially in Paderu, we work together and supporting the government and also different key players, the supply chain companies, to develop what's so-called a regional public-private coalition for sustainable landscape governance. Because without this framework, it will be difficult to support the development of climate resilience, but also connecting the smallholders, tribals, farmers to the market. Because of course, the market has its own standard and requirement. They need to understand what sort of criteria that can be implemented at the local level. Luckily, we got support also from the Andhra Pradesh government on not-for-profit organization called RIS. And the focus is addressing and implementing and also increasing sustainable agriculture practices incorporated in these farmers organizations, coffee, pepper, and turmeric, but also combining with agroforestry. So it's not only about improving productivity and economic livelihood, but also improving or strengthening climate resilience. So we expect that with this kind of support, farmers would be then able to produce and also sell their products, but also they can then address and cope with climate change in such landscape or state, for instance. In Indonesia, it's quite similar. In Aceh and North Sumatra, maybe I can just pick and choose a few examples. Like in Aceh and North Sumatra, we're working in a buffer zone of big ecosystem called Loiser ecosystem, 1 million hectares of forest. But of course, this buffer zone is threatened. Encroachment done by a number of actors, including smallholders, because they are not productive. The easiest way for them is just to expand to forest area. So we provide some options for them and also injecting it with certain finance, meaning that if they can improve their own productivity in the existing land, So we also ask them not to encroach to the forest area. As a result, the forest will be protected. They can also get additional benefit coming from ecosystem services, as well as additional premium coming from the market, because the market players like Unilever, PepsiCo are in this kind of contract as well, or this kind of collaborations. So this is just to show it to you. And it's not only about one or two prototypes. We are developing what we call verified sourcing area. So the entire district, the entire jurisdiction is being developed as one particular sourcing area that can, link directly to the market. So any cultivation of commodities hopefully can be connected to the market. And if this meet the criteria of, sustainability from the buyers, they will be accepted and incentives can be given to farmers. So this would be replicated in different areas also in Jambi, in Indonesia, in Sumatra, in West Kalimantan, in Jambi, for instance. Those incentives are also then channeled directly to farmers to help farmers to accelerate or to help the acceleration of land legality or land legalizations. It's quite clear if farmers have no legality, they will have difficulties in addressing their own economic poverty issue as well as sustainability. In West Kalimantan is quite similar also. The different perhaps is also about how can different farmers and concession and landholders work together even if they are basically competitors. So with government involvement, with certain policy that I mentioned, we are also pushing that kind of compact or agreement not only to be signed, but also to be complied by those concessionaire or landholders and also farmers. As a result, the improved productivity can be done together as well as the connection to the market. So the entire jurisdiction, again, can be then connected directly to the markets. Last but not least, I think what we also would like to do it further, and we have done it quite well, bit by bit, is to connect this type of prototype and business development or business model of farmers and supply chain companies with finance, key financial institutions. As you may know, that investment in agriculture has been perceived to be too risky. So can we do something connecting those financial institutions, be it commercial banks or different type of impact investment, to be then blended, in which, for instance, in this kind of structure, if you have to cultivate and then the first harvest, you have to wait for about like 4 years. The impact investment fund that we have helped develop, for instance, would provide the first investment from year 0 to year 4. And then the commercial investment can come after the first harvest, commercial banks. And if there's a default, the money is not from the bank, that will be then used as, this kind of first loss guarantee. I think with this kind of plan, certain banks have perceived this as a good breakthrough, and they are now willing more and more to cooperate in developing and innovating this kind of blended finance. And we got some deals going on in different countries, not only in India, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Malaysia as well, because we think that without key commercial investment coming in, helping for farmers, for instance, the 6 million euro for village forest in Indonesia, $23 million, because this is quite important to get a scale of addressing both economic development at the same time with environmental protection. So without this key finance coming from commercial investment, blended with donors, blended with the government, and also blended with different types of impact investment, it will be much more difficult to address such issues. So I will stop. I hope that there will be so many different questions that we can discuss further on. I'll give the floor back to you, Marcela. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Your valuable insights on climate change and your words of wisdom, and those are very nice. And it will be a great pleasure to listen to you again in one of our future events. So thanks again. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Participants, may I now request our next distinguished speaker of the day, Mr. Azhan Hassan, to address our esteemed participants of the webinar. Mr. Hasan works as a consultant infrastructure at Turner and Townsend LLC and climate change advisor at Qatar Rail, Ministry of Municipality and Environment, Qatar. He has been a PhD intern at Sustainable Consumption and Production Unit, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, Japan. He has been a reviewer at Asia Pacific Network for Global Change Research, Japan. He has been a European Union trainee and fellow for evaluation of sustainability in European conferences and training in Poland. He has also been a lead researcher for UK Newton Fund Research Project. Over to you, Mr. Azhan Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Mesula, for the introduction. Okay, and also thank you to Dr. Rajeshkumar Acharya for the keynotes, as well as to Zanish, and of course to Nanoland for this kind of invitation, and also to my dear panelists. Okay, and also to Mr. Fitrian, because I think Mr. Fitrian already come up with a good foundation, and that's make it my work a little bit easier. Okay, for your information, I originally from Malaysia. Okay, I just be invited to join one project in Qatar. Okay, just 1 month in Qatar, still not fully settled down. Okay, slowly settled down. But I want to share my experience. Okay, on the climate change, because when we talk about climate change, and the topic for our discussion today is some sort of to give us some hope for the future. Okay, it's about tomorrow. Yes, I believe, I'm very confident that we are still have a good hope, okay, in regard to the climate change. And we also need to engage, okay? We need to engage our society, okay? And also we need also to engage the citizen, because the climate change is not the high level agenda. It's very important that when government come up with a policy, okay, in order to mitigate the climate change, in order to improve the environmental performance, it's very important that we need to engage the citizen. Because why? Because the citizen, okay, could be the change maker, okay. It could be our NGO, okay. Like what Mr. Fitrian did, I think it's very impressive to me, okay. Also cover my country, Malaysia, okay. Hopefully, maybe we can have a future collaboration. And then it's very important to engage as many as possible the stakeholder, because we share in the same planet, okay. So this is our problem, okay. The climate change is the global problem. The climate change is the issue that everybody need to tackle. Okay, for example, we need to educate our consumer, okay, in order to support all the environmental program implemented by the government. Okay, for example, my experience when I did my PhD in Germany, they are very good in terms of the eco-labeling. Okay, for example, this eco-labeling is some sort like a label that you can see in the electronic product. Okay, they have those star from 1 to 5. Okay, 5 that means energy efficient. Okay, we need to tell our people, okay, why not you buy this product? Okay. And this actually is one of the small effort, but I believe can give us a big impact to the environment. Okay, and then of course the government also need to come up with the incentive, okay, that I believe can motivate the company, okay, to participate, okay, to invest in the best technology, in the clean technology, and that also can also be, I can say, it's a stimulating factor for them to invest in the best technology for the planet. So this is really about the education. Okay, I want to see, and I believe all countries now do their best, okay, in order to deliver the message about the climate change. Is how we tell our young generation, for example, our kindergarten student, or maybe our primary student, secondary student, and university student. Okay. Again, I want to flashback my experience in Germany. I attest to the Environmental Policy Research Center at the Freie University Berlin. Okay, this is a center that gives a policy advice to the German government. They have one in every year. They have 1 week. They call it as the Environmental Week. Okay. So during this 1 week, a lot of the activity from all range of the stakeholder, Okay, a lot of the activity, for example, like photo competition, essay competition, debate, and then the forum between the government, NGO, the industry leader. Okay, you can see how serious that we bring all the stakeholder, okay, in the platform to discuss and to find way how we can settle this problem. And then we also want to see that in future, we're able to train, we're able to educate our future leader, that means our young generation. Okay, they need to think what the impact to the environment when they consume. So one of my major project in Qatar, okay, we want to come up with a special program on the sustainable consumption and production. It's quite similar to what the Mr. Fitrian say in this space. Because why? Because our attitude will determine the future. For example, I will still what we call using the plastic bag. Okay, why not we use something that we can recycle, easy to recycle for the future production. Okay. And then for the government, okay, they need to come up with the various incentive. Okay, although it's not very easy, okay, especially for the developing country, for the poor country, this is actually the major challenge. Okay, how we can help the underdeveloping country, mostly in Africa, okay, together in this effort. Okay. And then, of course, this is the role played by the various United Nations agency. For example, we have United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, okay? And then we also have the special committee, okay, that give idea or maybe advice to the various panel of the United Nations. So maybe we can tell them, we can tell our society, for example, okay, what they can do. Okay, maybe we can invite them in a special program that we call, for example, like town hall. Okay, maybe we have one special seminar. Okay, and we let them to talk what they think about our future, what they think about our planet. Okay, in regard to the climate change. Okay, because why? I still believe the best policy design is still from the bottom to the top. Okay. And I engaged in a special project in how we engage the farmer in Switzerland, okay, when they want to come up with a policy on the sustainable farming in Switzerland, okay. And I'm very surprised because there are no, I say it's a direct invitation, direct involvement from the ministry, okay. Actually, they want to know the input from the farmer, because why? The farmer is the most affected group if we fail to tackle the climate change. Okay, so the best policy is we know that the what we call our target. Okay, because for example, when we fail to tackle the climate change issue, okay, we are very pity. Okay, about the future of our farmer. Okay, about our forestry and so on. Okay, so what Mr. Fitrian did and what we can see from the presentation is very, very insightful. Okay, and I say it's a big congratulations to Mr. Fitrian and the team. And then we also need to think about the collaboration. Okay, maybe we can have what we call the exchange among the scientists. Okay, maybe there are special program. Idea is a short course program, or maybe attachment, okay, when we bring the scientists from the developing country, okay, and to spend their time in the advanced country, okay, in order to find what the best solution to tackle this climate change issue, okay. And then maybe they also can have special scholarship program for the country, for the underdeveloping country, okay, to study at the special center on the issue of the climate change. And then I want to touch a little bit on the policy. Okay, there are some policy recommendation. Okay, of course there are no one fits all solution. Okay, that's why it's very important to understand the policy needs. Okay, there are certain policy maybe suitable to a country, for example, but maybe it's not efficient if you want to implement in B country, for example. Okay, so what are the suggestion? Okay, if you read from the many policy literature, okay, in regard to the climate change, it's very important for the country to establish what we call the strict technical standard. Okay, so what are the simple approach? Okay, this already been proven. Okay, is by impose what we call the eco-labeling in the country. Okay, that means what if you use this product, for example, you know the level of the energy that you use. Okay, the consumption level and so on. Okay, educate them to buy the product, maybe have the 4 or 5 star. Okay, because it's a product that is considered as a energy saving. Okay, and by buying that product, by use that product, you actually be part of the effort to save this planet. And then we also we need to come up with the strict technical change in regard to efficiency of the building and vehicle. Okay, so now it's the people talk about the electric vehicle. Okay, so now is the best time, okay, for the car maker, for example, to maybe to collaborate with the counterpart, or maybe to find the best way how they can come up with the efficient car in the future. Okay, maybe they're less dependent on the petrol. Okay, or if they are still using a petrol, maybe they can find way how to come up with a sustainable petrol. Okay, or maybe we can consider as a green petrol or clean petrol for the future. And then we also need to think about the long-term incentive for the power producer and for the industry company. Okay, to invest and deploy efficient technology. Okay, this is the time. Okay, I think the long we delay this effort, okay, we are still not save the planet. Okay, because the climate change is now a real issue. We already heard from the news. Okay, what happened in European in the Europe last week? Okay, it's a big flood hit Germany, Belgium, and then Republic of China. Okay, and then also as the what we call the climate warming. Okay, in Canada and United States of America. Okay, so it's the best time. Okay, either we like it or not. Okay, and already the room. Okay, the room for discussion, for dialogue. Okay, but besides we talking, okay, we also need action. Okay, that actually I think the important role need to be played by all the stakeholders. Okay, regardless how big the role. I want to emphasize. Okay, sometimes a small effort can give a big impact to the planet. And then for the government, okay, I think it's very important for the government to come up with this support, okay, in order to come up with the efficient as well as the renewable energy, okay, technology, okay, maybe they can come up with what we call green funding, okay, or maybe they can call something they can call as a climate funding and so on, okay, and that funding need to be fully monitor, okay, and then try to find the best project that they need to be that deserve for the funding, okay, and that project I believe, okay, can have a biggest impact in our effort to green the planet in the future. And then, of course, it's very important for any country, okay, as well as also include another stakeholder, for example, the company, okay, the non-governmental organization, NGO, okay, to think about the efficient management of forest and agriculture. It's also be touched by our colleague, Mr. Fitrian, okay, especially in the developing country. Okay, so it's actually it's a non-border issue, okay, because when you talk about the climate change, I think it's a time to stop pinpoint to other country. All country, I believe, have their own plan, okay. All country come up with with the strategy, with the agenda, in order to tackle the issue of the climate change. All stakeholder, okay, either they are big player or small player, they also think about climate change. The issue is how we can bring them together, okay? How we can bring them together in order to come up with a comprehensive solution. The solution that maybe can serve all the needs in the climate change. So there are no, I say, as I told before, that there are no one solution fit all, okay? So sometimes learning from experience is very important, okay? So now is maybe there are some institution maybe can can come up with a case study, okay, on the certain success story, either in terms of the technology, in terms of the investment, in terms of the governance, okay? And that need to be shared, okay? Maybe it's a time to come up with a database, so it's easy for people to read from the database and try to understand how they can bring the success story to the country, for example, okay? How we can learn from the successful country in this area, and maybe for the top management, okay? For our national leadership, okay? We have a good scientist right now. Okay, thank you for all the scientists that are working very hard in order to find the best solution for the climate change. We also don't forget, in order for us to educate, to train our so-called future scientists. Okay, that means our young generation. Okay, so this young generation need to be teach about climate change, and I believe, okay, with all this effort we can win over the climate change, and always there are always a tomorrow for all of us. Okay, although we something here bad news about in other country. Okay, take the lesson. Okay, this is actually a global issue, and as a global issue, we are global citizen. As global citizen, why not we work together for this lovely planet? Okay, with that, I end my speech, and hope we can engage in the Q&A after this. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Meswila.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very, very informative. And we appreciate your efforts and your kind words and words of wisdom for the valuable insights. Let us move on, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to the next speaker of the day, Ms. Diana Yeswaraj. She's a lecturer at Natural and Applied Sciences, University of Dubai. To address our esteemed participants of this webinar, I request her to give a presentation. But before that, I'm going to introduce you to her. She's a Google certified educator for advanced level biological sciences. She's a master's in biotechnology and a postgraduate diploma holder in bioinformatics. Her professional background revolves around 7 years of experience in scientific research and academics. Currently, she's working with University of Dubai as a lecturer and under the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in the UAE. I request Ms. Diana to present her presentation.
Okay, hi, hello everybody. Thank you, Masihullah, for introducing me. Thank you. First of all, good evening to everyone present here. Thank you, Nanoland. A special thanks to Zarnesh for reaching out to me for the second time. I feel extremely honored to be a part of this platform, and with such amazing panelists, as I have already heard two of you speaking, and I have got good takeaways to take from here. And thank you in advance, audience, for being lovely participants and being cooperative. So I'll just directly start with my presentation. I'll just share my screen quick. Okay, so before starting, I would just want to say that I am more of an academician waiting to pursue her research. Like I have my research work going on partially, but other than that, I'm an academician. I love teaching youth. Like I am dealing with youngsters right now, but I feel it's very important. I mean, it's obviously very important to educate people, not only youth, because we get to learn a lot from students, as Mr. Azhan said. So it's I feel it's important to educate them early on as for them to know what challenges they should be aware of. And like not only climate change, even when we talk about renewables, sources to tackle climate change, it's not easy to invest in a solar park. It's not easy to invest in, a renewable source also. So there are difficulties lying even in the good direction. So my work is basically educating. So this presentation will be more of an educational purpose, because the students whom I am dealing with work with key capstone projects in the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research, Ministry of Climate Change, Ministry of Youth. So students are like scattered all around. So we have like different capstone projects going on. Okay, so this is all. I just wanted to give a disclaimer before I start. Okay, so moving on to the presentation. I hope you can see it. Okay, so as you all can see in the first slide, the topic of the day definitely is climate change. And there is a big question that almost poses a dilemma, whether it's going to be a frozen Earth tomorrow or a molten Earth. Now, these graphical images, they don't give any honest answer, but they definitely raise an honest question. But to answer that, I think every panelist sitting over here knows that we don't have a concrete answer to that yet. Okay, so dilemmas are bound to happen because, and with the increasing climate change, there will be more dilemmas. But the best, if we can't solve it, at least the best we can do is to share our perspectives on it and to voice our concerns more. So there's more environmental awareness. People know what more to do and in which direction to think. So yeah, let's see whether it's going to be a frozen or a molten Earth. We don't know what lies ahead, but definitely, if we have the right mindset to think, and if we are informed rightly, we definitely can make good, mindful lifestyle choices and, live sustainably, live clean. So starting with the science behind climate change. So what do you think? Does it heat up the Earth or does it cool the Earth? Now, every school student, every person on Earth knows that heating up the Earth is something that we've been hearing everywhere, like maybe since the past 2-3 decades, that the temperatures are rising, sea levels are rising, glaciers are melting, the pole caps are melting. Okay, so we definitely know that because of the human enhanced greenhouse effect, due to industrialization, due to combustion, due to increased population, due to increased demand of resources, there have been a lot of human activities that have increased the amount of greenhouse emissions on Earth. And all this heat gets trapped in the infrared layer. So it's very difficult for the Earth to liberate the heat out into the space. So the earlier natural greenhouse effect that prevailed, it did not heat up the Earth, so to say, but the human enhanced greenhouse effect is definitely heating up the Earth. So yes, the Earth is getting heated up, right? But on the contrary, there is another paradox, which is the polar vortex. And it is not just fictionally paradox, it's like in real. There are certain Eurasian countries, there are certain countries in North America, they are experiencing more cold in the winters than what they used to previously experience. Okay, so people in those areas may feel that, oh, climate change is not real or global warming is not real because we feel more cold than before. It's not like that. I mean, we need to understand the concept of polar vortex for that. So basically, the poles and the equatorial regions, they have different, like they have a wide gap. There's a wide temperature wide gap, and there's a wide difference in the temperature. But because of global warming, because of climate change that is spreading far and wide, the warm air which is present in the equator, it moves towards the poles, right? So from the poles, all the cold air kind of tries to push down. The vortex, which actually retains the cold air at the pole, it kind of destabilizes, it weakens, it loosens, and it kind of sends down the cold air downwards, down south. So in a way, the Earth is also cooling. It might give more freezing winters than it previously used to give. So yes, climate change is heating as well as cooling the Earth, right? And how can I not talk about COVID-19, which is kind of given a temporary relief to climate change. Definitely because of lockdowns imposed and transportation stopped, the airplanes were grounded, people were locked at home. Because of that, the carbon footprint definitely went down. The carbon emissions went down by 8%, but in order to meet the Paris Agreement target, that is bringing the global surface temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we need a 10-year annual decrease by 7.6%. Okay, so this is just a tweet in order to highlight the alarming concern of climate change. There is a climate emergency right now. I know it's the wrong thing to say that COVID-19 would be temporary, but climate change is a big thing to tackle, but I feel it is the right way to think about that. Because of booming medical science and technology, I'm sure we all will get a relief from this pandemic one day soon, but we literally cannot foresee the climate change coming down or going back to the normal pre-industrial revolution days. Okay, so even a 1 degree rise in global warming, even the difference between 1 degree and 2 degree and 3 degree doesn't make any difference, right? I mean, it looks very marginal, but that difference from 1 to 2 degree globally, it can create vastly different scenarios. So it is an alarming concern, right? So now coming down to UAE, coming down to where my students are scattered in different capstone projects, I would like to highlight to you the impact of climate change in the UAE. So we all know that UAE is a coastline region. The temperature currently, it rises to about 48 degrees Celsius in coastal and 50 degrees C in the desert regions. But if the climate change continues and if the global surface temperature of the earth doesn't come down, there could be 2 to 3 degrees Celsius average increase during the summer months by 2060 to 2079. So soaring temperature is something that we are tackling. Definitely the globe is tackling, but I can just talk about the perspective from the UAE side. And then talking about humidity, the average humidity is 50 to 60%, which is 20% more than the global rates. And in extreme cases, it rises to up to 90%. But due to climate change in the future, overall humidity across the whole Arabian Gulf could increase about 10%. And talking about the sea level rise, sea level rise is 0.18 to 0.23 centimeter per year since the past decade in the Arabian Gulf. But in future, not only would there be more increase in the sea level rise, there could also, the coastline areas leading up at the urban, they could also experience mean high tides. And talking about rainfall, erratic precipitation, cloud seeding, and polar vortex, there could be more frequent cyclonic storms, there could be sandstorms, so there could be unprecedented events that could happen. So yes, climate change is definitely playing a huge impact. Like I can say UAE is one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of facing the potential impacts of climate change if not controlled, right? Other than that, the air in the UAE, there has been a huge shift onto usage of electrical vehicles or solar powered parks and usage of renewable clean sources. But other than that, UAE suffers high pollution, yes, because majority of the vehicles here are cars. People commute with cars. There is public transportation, but there's a lot of cars. You will not see two-wheelers here. It's always, majority of the transportation is cars. So cars release, obviously they increase the carbon, they obviously increase the greenhouse emission, so much so that it is an 80 tons per capita emission compared to the 14 tons per capita emission of the American head annually. Other than that, round the year, it's 8.5 months summer, so consistent usage of air conditioners wherever you go, whether it's in the homes, offices, transportation like vehicles or grocery shops or hospitals, wherever you go, you cannot survive without air conditioners here. So constant release of CFCs promoting to more greenhouse effect, which ultimately paving the way for more climate change. So so if I talk about the overview of the impact, human activities along with natural long-lasting climatic changes, temperature variations for a long time has resulted in a lot of bad effects for and that is resulting in the impact of this climate change in the UAE. So I want to talk about what are the different type of responses that the UAE is taking in different sectors. I can talk about this because different students in the Ministry of Higher Education, they are employed in different capstone projects, and we have different groups guiding them. So our students are working along with DEWA, that is the Dubai Electricity and Water Authority. They are working with their sustainability capstone projects. And one of my favorite sector that I would want to say is sustainable transportation and clean air. Basically, that means nothing but green mobility, usage of electrical, hybrid, and hydrogen vehicles. The Dubai Metro, which is a means of huge mass transportation, it has reduced its greenhouse emissions by 26%, which is a great news. And other than that, rationalizing the use of water and energy resources, usage of clean renewable sources of energy, whether it is for desalination, they have clubbed renewable sources of energy along with the traditional, like I cannot say that UAE has completely come down to clean. They are still using a lot of fossil fuels, but slowly and gradually there has been a shift towards clean energy, sustainable energy, renewable source of energy. Then other than that, installation of solar power projects, the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park, and then usage of solar panels. Okay, purchasing carbon offsets, talking about having strategies to mitigate climate change by abating carbon dioxide. All of this is a part of the greenhouse gas emission reduction plan. Other than that, I would also want to talk about two main initiatives which were taken at the public sector, that is Masdar City in Abu Dhabi and the Sustainable City in Dubai. Both of them work on like it's like a green building, basically. I don't have to explain green building, right? So the design is green. I mean, it's energy efficient or proper installations, or they have their own cloud formations. They produce their own water. They are just using electrical and solar vehicles inside. No cars allowed or no combustion allowed within. Shifting from a gas stove to electrical stove. So there are a lot of small, tiny changes which are different from the conventional way of living. And all of this is reflected in this pie chart, which talks about UAE's 2050 energy goals, which target 44% of clean energy, which is 17% than the previous, 17% increase than the previous target. Other than that, when there is an engagement with the public from the ministry's side, there is door-to-door awareness that's happening. The program is called My City, My Environment, in which there is door-to-door awareness programs for families, and neighborhoods are covered one by one by educational with the help of students delivering education campaigns and seminars. There is a new module which is called the Sustainable School Initiative and Sustainable Campus Initiative. This is launched under the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment and the Ministry of Education. So we've developed a school curriculum which raises the awareness of students. So they are divided into sustainable schools and eco schools. Okay, so basically in coordination with the MOE, there is a green curriculum which is being promoted so that students are more aware of what are the obstacles the earth is facing globally. Right, and this is also in partnership with the Worldwide Fund, aiming to encourage more environmental action in schools and universities. So last but not the least, I'm sorry if I have taken more time, but it all comes down to you and me as individuals. What can we do about it? I know creation of sustainable cities and creation of solar parks is not something that you and me can do on a regular basis, but what we can do is make good lifestyle choices, invest in more renewable sources, investing in an LED bulb, conserving energy, fixing your taps, or reducing water waste. All of these are small little steps that if 7 billion people on the earth can contribute little by little, I'm sure we can make a drastic, significant, positive impact. Okay, the very fact that we all are sitting here and having a conversation for climate, people are sharing about their businesses, different panelists are talking about their experiences in their work, or they are founders, and they're academicians and researchers. There are young panelists over here. So we all, I'm sure, will agree that everybody can do something green from their own side. So basically just reduce your carbon profile. reduce your carbon footprint, and you will get a lot of to-do things on the internet. Just Google and try to be more mindful, be more aware, and make good lifestyle choices so that we can all live sustainably, right? Whether it's opting for clean energy or for sustainable transport or just reducing the input of meat, because production of meat is such an energy intensive process. So if you cut down on meat, or if you reduce waste, or if you conserve water, you are cutting down on you are saving a lot of energy which is spent on these processes, right? Grow your own food. In that way, you can have your own urban garden. Your house looks more fresh and clean and good, and you can eat your own produce, make wise decisions politically. So basically, there are a lot of few little things which might seem insignificant at a single point, but when the whole world, when everybody starts doing it, when we have more conversations and we voice our concerns, I think things can definitely turn to be like we can definitely see a brighter side, and achieve the Paris Agreement, that is reducing the global Earth surface temperature to 1.5 degrees C. Okay, so wishing you good luck. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being cooperative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suraj. That was a very, very nice presentation, and we appreciate you giving your valuable insights. I hope your address would have paved the way to understand the strategies of combating climate change. Thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would request you to be prepared for the next speaker of the day, Dr. Narayan Dhakal. Dr. Narayan Dhakal is to address our esteemed participants of the international webinar. He works as an independent climate action research, education, and outreach consultant. He has worked in information technology and software quality assurance. He has been a part of the community mobilization in saving the environment from changing human behavior. He's a PhD holder in conservation science. He also possesses a postgraduate diploma in parks, recreation, and tourism. He is the CEO and owner of Diversity Intelligence in Climate Action. Over to you, Dr. Narayan. Dhakal, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's wonderful to see the earlier presentation. And in fact, I was a little bit confused to how do I frame my presentation? And I was thinking about frozen water and melting water, but in fact, you guys are talking whole frozen earth and molten earth. So I live in Minnesota, and so some of the thing I personally experienced, like just a while ago, polar vortex that we are experiencing here in the winter. Sometimes polar vortex declared, and we are not allowed to go outside. At the present time, there is a heat warming so high we cannot go outside. So we are living in extreme in the climate change. So my presentation is, okay, so I talk about this Mount Annapurna, which is in Nepal, the fourth highest peak. And the people believe that if this snow all melt down, then we'll be in acute hunger. So there is a belief system, and then they have a fear that due to climate change, if this mountain snow would melt down and then flows down below. So that is the people are believing. And I used to work with this organization a long time ago, and then we were doing extremely good work in there, that mobilizing community in terms of saving the environment and saving how we have to how we can contribute to the environment, and all those kind of things we were doing at that time. And then so today's I will talk mainly on I touch upon a little bit of climate change, and then loss of livelihoods, and I'll talk a little bit about water and science versus social science and ancient wisdom, food and water energy, and what would be the next things that we have to do. So this is the we are spewing that temperature rise. I mean the pollution into the atmosphere, and as a result, that a lot of people know that. I don't have to explain more detail about that. The Earth, why Earth temperature is heating up. So as a result, we are having this type of problem, the continuous flood, drought, forest fire, and then experiencing throughout the world. It's not only in the Western world, even in the Asia, in Eastern world, everywhere is happening. And then the immense property damage in terms of physical property, health, and then food, resources, all is going down due to this climate change. And for our part in Asia, this is we call the glacial lake outburst flood. And some scientists have developed some kind of alert mechanism that if some flood is coming high stream, then you can, at least you can save life, but the damage of properties like infrastructure, bridges, roads, and buildings, so it will be a massive expenses for the people, that poor people cannot bear with that. So why this is happening is when we raise temperature into the atmosphere, the Earth sea level water vapor intensely rise up, and then when it cooled, and it has a flood, and then everything goes down. So the main okay, so these are the damages in Asia. I talk about Gulf, that glacial lake outburst. This is the result that why you're having such a massive disaster, because when we increase the temperature of the sea level, and then water evaporates when it cools down, and then the intensity of water is high. So that is the result of having flood and then damaging the Earth environment and the life and property. So there is a story that there is how water form is scientifically there's a fusion of hydrogen and oxygen, and then there is somebody talk about volcanic eruption made huge evaporation up in the atmosphere, and it cooled down, it dropped as a water. And somebody also believed that meteorite hit into the Earth and then created water. And there is a cultural story in the Asian story, like I am from Nepal, and then there were people in my country who were used to talk about like some sages meditated, and then water came, and then the Lord Shiva said that I would bear this water. And then the whole landscape in Asia, like Mount Everest to even the Gangetic floodplain, the whole landscape is believe this kind of stories. And then it is nothing wrong to visualize that. And then when we talk about environment and then environmental education, these stories should be so immense. And as I remember from my mother used to say that life originates from 5 elements: air, water, fire, soil, and space, and we thrive on that. And my mother died when I was 13, and during that cremation, that what she was telling, everything was visible. So due to these elements, then we have been able to survive, and there is a plant we can grow, and then there is a food we can grow, we can get, and then we can eat. So that is the system, natural system being thrived in the atmosphere if we maintain the environment good. When you talk about environment, there is a science versus social science. Social science I'm a conservation biologist, but my topic and my research is more on social science. And we talk about, sometimes there is a disparity between these two sciences. Normally, the politician doesn't like social science much because we talk about manage, save, distribute, and justify, and change human behavior, and advocates for balancing nature. But other science sometimes totally alienated, focused toward development and produce, market, earn, consume kind of thing, and then doesn't care about much on the environment. And politicians love those kind of science because it brings money. So these are the constraints in terms of science. But the next generation, like how do we balance that? Is next science. How do you make next science better? Is whether you would like to make appropriate or misappropriate. If you want to make science appropriate, then you must reduce carbon emissions, maintain self-help, well-being, and help others, embrace traditional wisdom and culture within the science, and then mutual inclusion with every being, not only human being, but there is so many beings into the planet Earth. So how could we include each other? And then if misappropriated, then again, prolonged disaster, continuing threat to the war and violence, artificial creation and co-creation is not a natural creation. You can make robot to work in the field, in the factory, and failed humanities if science become misappropriated again. Let me talk about my remembrance with Veerbhadra Mishra. Professor Mishra was a hydrologist in Banal. In the university, we were in Sydney. He was a chief guest, and then he delivered some kind of speech that it was still intrigued on me, that how to balance science and culture. So he, as a professor, he used to take holy dip in the Ganges every day, but he didn't infect it with the coliform bacteria. But even though the river was so polluted, so his view was just don't hate water, don't hate rivers, just love river, and then try to clean that. So he gave a very good speech there, and we flew together from Sydney to Singapore. And during that time, I have some ambiguity within my religion myself. And Professor Veerbhadra was very kind to help me understand what those ambiguities were. And it was such an excellent moment. And then his advocation at that time was love and value water, reduce pollution, and science and spirituality must go together. And we all together need to cooperate and collaborate for the understanding the climate and then understanding the value of water. So in this, while we are talking this, and then he cited the emphasis on experiential environmental education of water conservation. So it's not only read and write on the environmental education, but you have to in fact be with the phenomena and understand with the phenomena, and then understand what is the quality and quantity, how does that help in your body system. And then it's not only one country, like not only in India, but also it has to be integrated into India, Nepal, Bangladesh, whoever are there along the river stream, who nurture with this river water and ice and mountain. So all these, how we can bring together, how we understand. So that was at that time discussion, and I am also moving along that line. I write blog quite frequently, and maybe I will share some of my blog also here in the chat. So these are the and embracing culture and tradition, because when we alienated with the science, sometimes we forget that what is the cultural story, what is the tradition there. Just if you are a scientist, if you are educated, then the first thing I would suggest is to, after your degree, just study your history and then ask questions, why that happened, why didn't that happen? So due to that, and then when you embrace that and you become complete science, complete education there. And we talk about pollution and then water pollution only, but there is when you develop infrastructure, there is certain, you stop water percolation, and then that assessment, I don't think whether in technical term they are assessing that, and then in the future worlds, future science also has to deal with that, how much water flow impediment is there. So that has to be also accounted in terms of when we assess the environment into the environmental assessment. So there is I used to, when I was 9 years, there was I used to cite the verse that there is ancient algorithm that is said in Sanskrit, like Annam Brahma Raso Vishnu Bhakta Deva Maheshwara. So how do you decode that? If you decode that there is good food, perfect digestion, and pure water and nectar, then you assure your perfect health. So why can't we bring those kind of knowledge into the science and then integrate that? Because I came to this point, some of the students asked me that, okay, how do we make a living from our culture? How do we earn from our culture? If you have mantra, if you are meditating, then how do you make that instrumental to earn money? So I used to tell them then, okay, there is a in mind-body industry in USA, there's a $2 billion industry is there. So you can either produce that knowledge in terms of your earning, or you can teach people, you can earn by yourself. The social media these days is helping a lot to become an entrepreneur. So how you can be, how deep you can go to extract that knowledge. And there is a blog I talk about, and there is in the link, because when you talk about climate, it's basically to do with the human behavior. So how to change the human behavior is first, you need to change yourself. You have to change your household and your village, district, region, country, and you can change the world. But the threshold, the barrier is the challenge for a lot of people, including me and many other people, how to break that barrier of moving from house to village. So we are governed by selfish gene, and I, me, and mine. There is a greed and corruption going on, and we have our ego, gratify our ego. So all those, how do you balance that, and then to move forward, to make a change into the system, to make your village better, and then move forward. So this type of thing is not easy to say. There is not a definite answer to do that, but it needs a lot of passion, a lot of courage, a lot of understanding. The first thing is to understand, and one thing that we lack is we couldn't manifest what we thought. Like there is immense, diverse, infinite thought that we do during our meditation or whatever we do, but how to manifest that into action is a challenge. So there is a book I read that wrote by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He talks about how to manifest that in action. It's not as simple to explain right now. I cannot give tell an easy solution to that, but there is a way out that when you are thinking, and then if you think one of the thought is important to you, and how to manifest that is, you have to decide on your condition based on your space, based on your institute or where you are working. So So the thing I would like to give emphasis is that meditation or yoga or whatever you do is not just traveling into the trance or in the atmosphere in the universe, but how to bring that into the real world and how to manifest that, and is the key thing that that we have to learn and we have to experience that. So I write along that line. I write blogs. There is a website you can go to. My website, www.endagal.com, and I talk there about is biological intelligence is better than artificial intelligence. Small business to grow plant-based small business. There is immense knowledge within the plant community. We still have to know. There are only a fraction of things we know, but there are so much we need to know that I have talked about that. And 5 elements of consideration for a small business that I talk on that blog, and also 5 natural wisdom for responsible business, 5 small business challenges for immigrants, and 5 takeaways for start a small business. So these are the things here. I talk about some wisdom and some scientific fact that come up with in the social media or internet. So once you have your traditional wisdom or cultural-based information, then you can generate your idea and then do action research. Action research is not just producing your document and then publishing the paper, but it is how this research is helping for the poor, helping for the people who need help. And then do that exercise, and you can develop a prototype and look for investor or donor and bring that into the market. So that is the one way to go. That what I normally teach to the student here, and then also in some various talk programs. So at the end of my slide, I would like to say that it must be frozen, but it has to maintain a continuous perennial flow of what I'm talking about. Water is not art. This is my contact, and if there is anything you would like to know about what I am doing, and then you can always contact me through my website or my contacts. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward, if there is any question, I'd be able to answer that. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dakal. That was an extremely informative and insightful presentation. And we really, really thank you for giving this to us. Now, moving ahead, we have our next speaker of the day, Ms. Kanak Gokar. She's a junior officer at Climate and Energy Action, ICLEI. She has done work in 100% renewable regions and cities roadmaps projects under the International Climate Initiative, ICI, as well as 100% renewables network. Her background is in energy policy and international relations. She has previously worked in various public policy institutions and international organizations in France and India. I request Ms. Gokarn to give her presentation.
Okay, thanks, Masila, for the introduction, and thank you for having me. And I'm honored to be speaking alongside so many experienced professionals with so many years of experience and such a diverse background. So I'm really glad for that. I was told this webinar is for a general audience, so I've kept that in mind when preparing my remarks. And I will say also that I am not a scientist either. And my background has again mainly been in policy. And so I will stay away from the technicalities and talk a bit more about maybe my work and what my organization has been doing. So maybe I can share presentation just to give you some. You see it?
Yes, we can see it.
So, I mean, most of the speakers who've gone before me with their remarks have already touched upon the various concerns related to climate change. And obviously the most concerning at this point is the speed and the scale at which anthropogenic emissions have contributed to increased global temperatures and so on. And also the scale of the efforts required to prevent the worst effects of this from coming true, I guess. We've already seen a global rise in average temperatures of 1 degree Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. So that's 1850 to 1900, which is what the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change uses. And the goal laid out in various agreements, especially the Paris Agreement, is of course to limit that to 2 degrees Celsius and 1.5 if possible, compared to pre-industrial levels. As for what tomorrow will look like, which was the guideline for this webinar, I'd say it's impossible to know. I mean, of course, we have a lot of sophisticated scientific research, assessments, and modeling going on in the background, and we are getting a better idea of the impacts of climate change, the various areas that it's going to impact, how these various impacts interact with each other, whether there's going to be feedback loops or cascading effects and so on. And we're also, of course, maybe starting to experience some of these effects, including perhaps more extreme weather events, for example, the floods in Germany, as well as more severe heat waves, more common heat waves, and so on. And of course, the science keeps improving, so hopefully we will be able to get a better idea as things progress. But again, all the modeling, all the science, it's not a prediction. It's just a map of what the likely scenarios could be based on what we know about all the different scientific disciplines. What we can, of course, say is that the impacts of climate change are likely to affect all areas of activity, and that certain populations are likely to be more vulnerable to these changes, even though they may not always have contributed to the causes behind it. And this, of course, brings with it the need for change and transformation in our energy systems, in our societies, which brings with it a need to invest in cleaner technologies and invest also in wider adaptation measures in order to make our systems overall more resilient to these changes. Of course, as Diana mentioned, these clean technologies also have their trade-offs, but I won't touch on that right now, but if there are any questions, of course, happy to answer. I think to be a bit more hopeful, it's also key to remember that this isn't an either-or situation, like every step counts. So whatever efforts are being put in right now are important, even though they could be more ambitious, of course. But it's a start, and I think as we progress, there's still potential for increased commitments and so on by various actors. So one question, because of the scale of the issue, I think one useful question to ask is which areas and which actions do you prioritize? And that's where my bias comes in, because I'm working with an organization that works with local governments, especially cities and towns, in the sector of sustainable development. So I will focus on that for my presentation. Why cities specifically? Well, the main reason is, of course, that they're home to about 50% of the population now, which is only slated to grow to about 70% by 2050. They are a major source of carbon emissions, almost 70%. And of course, they contribute about 80% of the world's GDP and consume about 2/3 of its final energy. So local actions at a city level, town level, and not just urban areas, rural as well. These actions can really make a big difference for achieving national climate goals, as well as on the lives of their citizens, because the the connect between the local government and its citizens is much closer, which helps create more sustainable, more acceptable, more tailored solutions, let's say, and which helps. So just to give you an idea of the work ICLEI does, we focus on 5 pathways of sustainable development. Now, I mean, climate action cuts across all of these, but the main focus would be the low emissions development pathway, which focuses not just on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but as well as reducing pollution and so on. We have the nature-based development pathway, which focuses on strengthening the relationship between communities and, of course, their natural environment. We have the equitable and people-centered development pathway, which really prioritizes societies and communities and building more resilient, more equitable solutions, since, of course, some populations and communities are affected more than others, for example. There's the resilient development pathway, which is meant to improve the ability of urban areas, rural areas to handle shocks in the system. And then there's the circular development pathway, which aims to reduce waste and move away from a linear model into more circular, so to improve efficiencies in the overall system. So yeah, so just to bring the focus on what ICLEI does in the climate sphere. So our main climate action program is called the Green Climate Cities Program, where we help cities analyze their situation, act, and accelerate their commitments towards achieving climate neutrality. It guides cities through these processes, including from committing initially to research, developing a plan, a roadmap, implementing projects, and so on. Part of it is the climate neutrality framework, which also has 3 pillars, which includes reducing and sequestering greenhouse gas emissions for the first one. The second one involves divesting, repurposing, and investing away from, let's say, fossil fuel-based projects towards more climate-friendly ones, and offsetting or compensating any GHG emissions that are unavoidable or can't be reduced in the short term. The other program that we are working on, and I am working on especially, is the 100% Renewables Cities and Regions Roadmap Project, where we believe that 100% renewables can be a major contributor for cities to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. As part of this project specifically, we are working with 3 cities in 3 different countries. So that's Kenya, Argentina, and Indonesia as well, where we're working with the region of West Nusa Tenggara, I think, and we are helping them, assess their situation, what their needs are, helping them with energy modeling and so on. Eventually, they'll be able to come up with a roadmap towards achieving 100% renewables, and then settling on a few viable projects and hopefully become 100% renewable by 2050. What's interesting about all these projects is that these cities have such different developmental contexts, natural resource endowments, and so on. So each solution varies a lot, and we come up with very creative ideas to enable them to mitigate their emissions as well as adapt and become more resilient to the effects of climate change in general. So, I mean, you can see here the different varieties of climate commitments that some cities have made. Some, for example, Chandigarh has committed to transitioning towards 100% renewables. Some have declared a climate emergency. Others have fully committed to climate or carbon neutrality. Others have chosen to divest from fossil fuels. So I think that brings me to the end of my remarks. If there are any questions, then I'm happy to answer them. There's, of course, a lot more nuance to everything I've said, so just keep that in mind. And Personally, I find the challenge ahead of us quite significant. So I find it more productive to focus on the things that are being done, especially at a smaller, more inclusive, more impactful level. And I hope I was able to convey that. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gokarn. That was an extremely informative presentation. So it is my honor to introduce you all to her. Ms. Jui Bansil is a lawyer with experience in fields of environmental policy, international humanitarian law, and human rights. She has joined UNEP from the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI, where she has worked in the Center for Global Environmental Research under the Climate Change Division. She was engaged in research on environmental policy under the UNFCCC and on the linkages between climate change and migration. Ms. Bansil also holds an advanced master's degree LLM in international humanitarian law and human rights from Geneva Academy in Switzerland, and has a dual degree of BA LLB honors at the undergraduate level from Nalsar University of Law in India. I would request Ms. Bansil to give her presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very pleased to be here. I would like to thank the organizers, Nanoland, for inviting me. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak as part of this eminent panel on this very pressing issue of climate change and whether tomorrow will see a frozen or molten Earth. It's also been great to hear the views of previous speakers, some of which I will echo and elaborate upon. And I will actually probably go back to why the Earth is warming, because that is where I find my expertise. Yeah, so basically I want to start by saying that climate change has not stopped for COVID-19. Greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere are at record levels and they continue to increase. Emissions are heading in the direction of pre-pandemic levels following a temporary decline caused by the lockdown and the economic slowdown. I had put up a picture in the opening slide, which I guess if you Google it, it's called Warming Stripes for the Earth from 1850 to 2020. And it's quite a stark representation because each stripe represents the global temperature averaged over a year. So the blue stripes denote cooler years and the red ones show warmer years. And the stripes turn from mainly blue to mainly red in more recent years, and they illustrate the rise in average temperatures globally. The world is set to see the warmest 5 years on record, which is a trend that is likely to continue. At this critical juncture, it's important to note that the United Nations is poised to release the most confident and comprehensive assessment yet of global warming, which includes detailed estimates of how continued greenhouse gas emissions will increase the sea levels and that will drive extreme weather events in the coming years. This has been compiled by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the report will detail significant changes to the world's oceans, ice caps, and land in the coming decades. It will be the first global assessment on the science of global heating since 2013, and it's likely to be a key document for global leaders when they meet in Glasgow for COP26. This is also critical in light of the 1.5 degree target, which was set in 2015 in Paris. And on the basis of current policies, scientists agree that governments will fail to meet the goals they set in Paris Climate Accord to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So after several decades of research, there is no doubt that greenhouse gas emissions cause global temperatures to rise, and that we will see a warming world and, in fact, a molten world in the decades to come. Concentrations of these gases have risen by around 50% since pre-industrial times, and the planet has warmed by more than 1 degree Celsius. By some estimates, the world is on track for nearly 3 degrees of warming unless governments do more to curb these emissions. Researchers have grown more confident in such projections as climate science has advanced. One way in which scientists have assessed their climate projections is through this metric called climate sensitivity. This is a measure of projected long-term warming that would occur if the planet's atmospheric carbon dioxide levels doubled compared with pre-industrial levels. And despite advances in our understanding and computing power, estimates of climate sensitivity have been stuck at around 1.5 to 4.5 degrees since the 1970s. Recent efforts to narrow that range have significantly boosted scientists' trust in projections of how quickly the world might warm in the coming decades. In a study published in July 2020, for instance, a team of researchers challenged climate models with multiple lines of evidence and they included contemporary climate records and evidence from ancient climates. And they have determined that a likely climate sensitivity will be of 2.6 to 3.9 degrees, which is a very, very warm world. The IPCC released a special report in 2019 detailing how the Earth's sea levels might rise in a warming world. And the science presented pointed to an average global sea level rise by between 0.3 meters to 1.1 meter by 2100, depending on greenhouse gas emissions. It's very important to understand how rising tides could affect communities on a local and regional rather than just a global scale, because different cities, countries, and regions will experience sea level rise in very different ways. Even seemingly small increases in local sea levels can have significant impacts, particularly on flooding and surges during storms. In many areas around the world, once-in-a-century floods will become annual events by the end of the century, even under most optimistic climate scenarios. This IPCC report is coming at a time when we have been inundated with news of climate disasters, such as the epic flooding in Germany that happened in China. It happened even in India and Maharashtra, and heat waves that have shocked the US, Canada, and Europe. They've also triggered wildfires that are raging through California, Turkey, and Greece at this very moment. 2020 saw the largest wildfires ever recorded in the US states of California and Colorado, while bushfires in Southeast Australia burned an area that was like size of South Korea. The UN World Food Programme has warned that up to 400,000 people in Madagascar are currently approaching starvation following back-to-back droughts. Climate scientists have concluded that global warming is most certainly a driver of such events and has increased the likelihood of such events by a factor of 150 since the end of the 19th century. Over the next century, as the world gets hotter, it's expected that sea ice will continue to decline, glaciers will continue to shrink, snow cover will continue to decrease, and permafrost will continue to thaw. In June 2020, temperature reached 38 degrees Celsius in eastern Siberia, which is the hottest ever recorded within the Arctic Circle. The heat wave accelerated the melting of sea ice in the eastern Siberian and Laptev seas and delayed the usual Arctic freeze by almost 2 months. The Arctic is heating twice as quickly as the rest of the world, and as less ice makes it through the warm summer months, we also lose its protection. In its place, we're seeing large areas of open dark water, which also absorb more heat and which also fuel further global warming. Across the northern hemisphere, permafrost, which is the ground that remains frozen year-round for 2 or more years, is warming rapidly. When the air temperatures reach 38 degrees in Siberia, the land temperature in several parts of the Arctic Circle hit a record 45 degrees Celsius, accelerating the thawing of permafrost in the region. Permafrost also contains a huge amount of greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide and methane, which are released into the atmosphere as it thaws. Soils in this region, which spans around 23 million square kilometers across Siberia, Greenland, Canada, and the Arctic, hold twice as much carbon as the atmosphere does, which is almost 1,600 billion tons. Much of that carbon is stored in the form of methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas, which also has a global warming impact 84 times that of carbon dioxide. So according to UN Environment Programme's Emission Gap Report, the total greenhouse gas emissions in 2019, including land use change, reached a new high of 59.1 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Based on today's insufficient global commitments to reduce climate polluting emissions, a rebound in greenhouse gases from a return to high carbon societies after this pandemic may push 2030 emissions even higher, which is up to 60 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. The global climate is projected to continue to change over the century and beyond. The magnitude of climate change beyond the next few decades depends primarily on the amount of heat-trapping gases emitted globally and how sensitive Earth's climate is to those emissions. According to UNEP's Emission Gap Report, to prevent a warming beyond 1.5 degrees, we need to reduce emissions by 7.6% every year from this year to 2030. 10 years ago, if countries had acted on this science, governments would have needed to reduce emissions by 3.3% each year. So every year we fail to act, the level of difficulty and the cost to reduce emissions goes up exponentially. So meeting the 1.5 degree target will require the world to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 30 gigatons annually by 2030. Cutting direct carbon emissions from transport and industry will really not be enough on its own. Countries must also more efficiently manage their land and resources, build smart cities, and curb deforestation and food waste. The United Nations Environment Programme has identified a 6-sector solution for climate change, identifying a roadmap for 6 key sectors, which can enable us to reach a carbon-free future. This means cutting emissions from transport and industry, managing land and resources more efficiently, building smart cities, and curbing deforestation and food waste. UNEP works across these 6 sectors to support the transition to a low-carbon, more resilient future where humanity reduces emissions and ensures that the 6 sectors can also adapt to the impacts of climate change, which are expected. UNEP supports and enhances climate action through science-based decision-making, capacity support, and institutional strengthening, and provides tools and guidance on legal and financial frameworks that enable climate-smart development. As the climate emergency intensifies, the transition towards climate stability becomes increasingly critical. Progress will depend on countries and their ability to cover ground on their commitments under the Paris Agreement, and eventually their collective contributions to keep the global average temperature in check. We need a massive step up in ambition on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and hopefully we will see this in the upcoming COP26 in Glasgow. The success or otherwise of this conference will have stark consequences for the world. If countries cannot agree on sufficient pledges in another 5 years, the emission reduction necessary will lead to a near impossible 15.5% every year. The unlikelihood of achieving this far steeper target of decarbonization means that the world faces a global temperature increase that will rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Every fraction of additional warming above 1.5 degrees will bring worsening impacts that will threaten lives, food sources, livelihoods, and economies worldwide. It is imperative at this point to focus on a green pandemic recovery and updated nationally determined contributions that include new net zero commitments. However, the world must also plan for, finance, and implement climate change adaptation to support those nations that are least responsible for climate change, but also that are most at risk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bansil. That was a very, very informative presentation, and we hope that we would get the opportunity to witness your presentations in the future as well for any future events. Thank you so much once again. Our next speaker for the session is Ms. Dita Mutiara. She's the Program Officer of Research for Climate Change, University of Indonesia. Ms. Mutiara is an alumnus from the Department of Biology at the University of Indonesia. Currently, she's working at the research of Center for Climate Change, University of Indonesia. One of the researches that she's currently doing is related to trade development and environment hub. Besides working, she also founded the Climate Story Immunity, which is a learning platform for youth related to the climate crisis. I would request Ms. Mutiara to give her presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Marcelullah, and good evening, everyone. It's such an honor for me to attend this meeting. All right, since I am the 7 speakers, maybe you can stretch your body and then, yeah, make it relax. And I also would like to say thank you for everyone that joined this meeting and you already invest yourself, your time to learn together about the climate crisis issue. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And then I would like to share screen. Interesting for today's webinar, it's tomorrow, frozen or molten earth. And then we already have a very comprehensive explanations from our expert today. And I think all of the science policy context already given by our previous speakers. And then maybe a little bit about introductions by background, as already introduced by our moderator today. I'm Dita Mutiara Labella, you can call me Dita. I'm 23 years old, so I'm just graduate from Department of Biology, University of Indonesia. And then why I chose biology? Because I live in Bekasi, which is the urban area in Indonesia. And every year, almost, I experience the flood in my home. So that's why I'm really curious to learn about the nature. How is it only symptoms, or is it have a bigger impact? It's not only about flood, but it's about climate crisis. So that's why after graduate, I chose to work at Program Officer, Research Center for Climate Change, University of Indonesia. And I learned a lot of insight from the experts. And I would like to have an in-depth understanding, such another speakers that already having a master degree or PhD. So in September, I would like to continue my study in UCL to take Environment and Sustainable Development program in UK. And besides working, I also building the Cerita Iklim community atau climate stories community. And I will talk it later. So if we talk about the climate crisis, first of all, I would like to disclaimer myself that I'm not an expert. Maybe I'm speaking this as a perspective of the youth, especially from Indonesia. And if we talk about the climate crisis, it's very closely related to temperatures and also the carbon dioxide emissions. And it's always increased dramatically, as already explained by all of the speakers before. And then, as we can see from this graph, that in 2000s, we released 24.6 billion tons carbon dioxide, and it increased more than 50% 20 years later in 2019. And we can imagine in the futures how much emissions that we will release if we don't do anything right now. Okay, so actually there's a lot of causes about the climate crisis, but I'll try to make it simple. The first one is because of population size. Now we live with around 7 billion people in our Earth, and as Mr. Azhan already said, that climate crisis issue is borderless. So we have to collaborate each others. And why population size matters? Because populations, all of the individual will release the carbon emissions. So as the population's getting bigger, it's always equal to the increasing the emissions. So that's why populations matters. And then the second one is about economic growth. Actually, it's already well explained by Fitrian. They talk about the investment and also sustainable trade, because economic related to the consumptions and then related to the productions, they're also releasing the emissions. We already know, actually, I do believe that everyone in this webinar already know the urgency of the climate change, or the urgency of we have to take an actions. But there's still a lot of people outside there that still ignore about the climate change or the climate crisis, or maybe they do not really understand about the climate crisis itself. So I would like to take the perspective of the youth. Why youth become important? Because the world is home to 1.8 billion young people between the age of 10 until 24 years old. And this is the largest generations of the youth in history. And we already know that the youth has the power to mobilize and to having pressures to the government or to the public policymakers, and also to the scientists about bring the finding from the scientists into the decisions policymaker processing. So I think yes, youth have the power in terms of the mass itself. And then, as the UN Secretary General said, that it is your generations, it is youth generations that must make us be accountable to make sure that we don't betray the future of humankind. So I think yeah, we as a youth have to know what's the urgency of the climate change itself and what we can do for the next or for the future. Actually, there's a lot of movement that already Ms. Dana already explained about the science of the climate change and also how it can drive the movement around the world. For example, like the famous one, Greta Thunberg, with their movement, climate strikes, and it can inspire other countries, such as in Indonesia. Indonesia have a Cerita Iklim community that trying to advocate about the climate justice and then climate crisis issue to the society, especially to the youth. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic situations, we have very limited mobilizations. Last year in 2020 on May, I'm trying to build a community that called as a Cerita Iklim. You can check it out on our Instagram, cerita.iklim. Actually, we have a behind story of this community because I work at the Research Center for Climate Change, and I got a lot of insight from the experts, such as from Pak Fitrian and other scientists or policymakers. And I do believe that I got a lot of insight from the expert, but unfortunately, the insight is not well disseminated to the youth. So I think I need a forum or community to discuss these issues to the youth. For example, maybe the expert talk about the carbon tax, carbon pricing, but these issues is not well known to the youth. So I think it will be great if we have community that talk about the current issue of the climate, especially in Indonesia, because we conduct our platform into Bahasa. And we have three products. The first one is review journal, paper review, because we understand that not everyone have an interested to read the journal, because it's maybe especially in Indonesia, not everyone understand about the English because our main language is Bahasa, but unfortunately the very prominent journal is conducted in English. So we trying to make it easier to the society to understand, and we translate the journal into Bahasa and make it easier through the infographics. And then the second one is podcast. Podcast is very increased. It's becoming trend, especially to the youths that they're trying to multitasking, so they can get new informations by listening to podcast while they can also doing another activities such as cooking. And then the last one is active discussions. We also conduct some discussions like this. It's we are trying to have an engaging discussion, such as we are not only having a discussion with the speakers, but between the audience, it can be having a can discuss each others. Maybe I would like to share my another screen. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is the Cerita Iklim community. Here's some of our content. So we are trying to conduct in Bahasa. This is the first paper review. This is the latest paper review that we have that we already conducted. So we are trying to make it easier to understand to the audience, because as Miss Diana said that educated people is the most important one, because if the people do not understand the urgency of the climate change, they do not have encourage themselves to do anything or to do an actions. So first thing first is we have to educate about the climate change itself. And then such as this point, we review about the Dasgupta review about the economy biodiversity, and we translate into the Bahasa, and we trying to extract the main point of it. And then for the podcast, here's the podcast. We try to learn about the renewable energy in Indonesia, so everyone can listen into podcasts freely. And then besides the content, we also conduct a campaign, because we are trying not to educate, but also call to actions to our followers. Such as this plan at home. So we conduct everyone to, we encourage everyone to posting their plan activities in their home during the pandemic COVID-19, and also plastic free in July last year. So people can reducing their plastic use. And yeah, there's a lot of campaign that we already conduct. And Cerita Iklim is still growing. Within 1 year, we already reached more than 8,000 followers. And for the team itself, we have 20 persons, 20 young people around Indonesia. Yeah, I think if you're interested, we are happy if you like to collaborate with us with Cerita Iklim, especially to engage with the youth. Then back to my slide. And the last one is, yeah, this is the keywords about the youth and climate. The first one is collaborations. I think collaborate is the most important aspect. For example, we conduct webinar Cerita Iklim untuk Indonesia on the last January, and we collaborate with more than 50 media partners. And the participants is more than 1,000 participants that comes around, the students that come around Indonesia, and we talk about the local actions, and we discuss about what kind of the local actions or local policy to reducing their carbon emissions and how we can achieve our NDCs and etc. So we discuss with the expert also. And then the next one is networking. Actually, this is a great opportunity for me to have another network beside Indonesia, so we can make collaborations to the next level. And then the last one is actions. Yeah, because as previous speakers already say that everyone can take an actions no matter what kind of. It's not. I always think that climate change is not only saving the earth, saving the environment, but it's also about the humanity, because climate change is also integrated with socials and the economic one. And I do believe that if you save the earth, if you save the climate change issues, so you also save the humanity. And then the last one, thank you so much for your attentions. If you like to having a further informations from me, you can contact me in my email, and then just follow follow the Instagram of Cerita Iklim. Thank you. Back to you, Mas Yola.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dira. That was a very, very fine presentation, very, very informative and very insightful. So now we'll move ahead and to the next speaker that we have is Dr. Manorama Mohanty. She's a scientist head of the Meteorological Center. She's a scientist and she joined IMD in 2003 and was involved with the weather forecasting services. She's now holding a post of Scientist E. She's published various research papers in various peer-reviewed journals. She did her MTech in atmospheric physics from Pune University and her doctorate from Mohanlal Sukhari University. I would request Dr. Mohanty to give her presentation.
Good evening, namaskar. Myself, Dr. Mohanty. I would like to thank organizer. It's a pleasure to speak on this platform. Myself, Dr. Mohanty, and working in IMD as a scientist. I'm the head of Gujarat IMD. So I'll be mostly discussing about the observational aspect of climate change over India as well as in Gujarat also. So my discussion will be like climate system, climate and health, climate variability and climate change, observe climate change over India, climate change and extreme weather, future climate scenario, and prospect of climate service in health sector over India. As we all know very well, the climate change mostly linked to the change in the atmospheric composition, circulations, change in ocean, like circulation, sea level rise, biogeochemistry, and change in land surface, ocean orography, land use, vegetation, ecosystem, and change in hydrological cycle also. So this is very common things as what we should know. And as the organizer, Professor Dr. Acharya said, global warming always climate change always will link with the global warming. Global warming is always related to the greenhouse gas, which I would like to emphasize a little bit. Greenhouse gas means there is sun's radiation, and most of the solar radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface, which warms the Earth. And that the infrared radiation is emitted from the Earth's surface, and some of the infrared radiation is absorbed and re-emitted by the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, water vapor, and NO2, etc. And the effect of these this is to warm the surface at the lower atmosphere. So this is about the climate change. What exactly the climate change, how it is, climate variability is there, and the day-to-day health outcome of human being are mainly affected by the climate variable and climate change. That's because they are associated with the weather and climate variables. Temperature-related morbidity and mortality, health effects of extreme weather event, cyclones, tornadoes, storms, hurricanes, precipitation, and extreme weathers. And then air pollution-related health effects, water and flood, foodborne diseases and vector-borne diseases. Then climate variability and climate change will be discussed. Mostly climate variability, we mean to that is the temporal variation of the atmosphere ozone system around the mean state. What is the normal state of the ocean and atmosphere, and how temporally the time scale, how it is getting changed. Typically, this term is used for the time scales longer than those associated with the synoptic weather event. The term natural climate variability, it is also variable. There will be variability without the intervention of the human activity. Climate change, any systematic change in a long period of time for all the atmospheric parameters like temperature, pressure, wind, which will sustain over several decades or longer. Climate change may be due to the natural external forcing, such as change in the solar emission or slow change in the Earth orbital elements, or there is natural process also. So as we all are speaking about the climate change and the IPCC, from the IPCC report, the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, as you see, it is increasing drastically from here to this. And because of this, the whole world is concerned now. And the global temperature trend from the observational data, if we see, and it is also observed that after the, it is mostly temperature here, if you see up to this place, this is blue color, here temperature mostly towards the negative side. But after this, around after 1960 or 1980, the temperature gradually is increasing. For the from the whole globe as a whole and northern hemisphere, even for the southern hemisphere, it is observed. Increase in greenhouse gas has resulted in increase in surface air temperature and thus global warming due to the greenhouse effect. Global instrumental temperature data suggests unprecedented warming due to the recent decades. And what exactly observe climate change over India, that I'll be discussed in terms of rainfall as well as temperature. And if we see, if you see the temperature trend, temperature anomaly over the all India, we have considered the 116 years data, and we are seeing after the 1990, right, 1990, the temperature is sharply, temperature anomaly is sharply increasing all over the, this is the India as a whole, if you will see. And also we have seen the trend, how the temperature trend is there. And all over the India, this is the red color, which indicates the increasing trend. And the blue color represents the decreasing trend of temperature. And here we see the all India annual maximum temperature anomaly, that is 1991 to 16, it is also showing the temperature trend is increasing, and trend is 1.04 degrees Celsius per 100 years. And if you consider for 10 years, it is 0.104 degree Celsius. And this is the annual mean temperature anomaly. It is also showing the minimum temperature anomaly. It is showing also increasing trend, and which is 0.25 degrees Celsius per 100 year. If that minimum temperature increases, that will be the direct impact on the agricultural production. And this is the long-term temperature trend, mean temperature trend, maximum temperature trend, and minimum temperature trend over the India as a whole. And there are two analysis has been done. That is, one analysis is being done for the year 1901 to 2010. That is 110 years, and another analysis is being done for the recent 30 years, that is 1991 to 2010. And if you see the recent year, there is no negative trend is there. Mostly in northern India and eastern India, it is showing there is positive trend in and temperature anomaly for both maximum temperature, minimum temperature, and also for the annual mean temperature. And this is the special pattern of the mean, maximum, and minimum temperature anomaly for the month. Generally, maximum temperature increases very rapidly during the month of March, April, and May, where the temperature, maximum temperature goes up. And these 3 months, we have also taken the statistic and found that mostly temperature are in a rising trend in most part of the northern India compared to the southern India. And if we see the temperature trend, this is temperature annual minimum temperature anomaly, actual minimum temperature anomaly. Then also it is showing there is a increasing trend by 1.93 degrees Celsius per 100 year, and per year if we consider 0.193 degrees Celsius per 10 years. Per year it will be again reduced to 0.01 degrees Celsius. So this is the annual maximum. Also, we have taken the short duration just to enlarge the rise, how it is rising for the visual presentation. And per 10 year, we found that it is increasing by 0.14 degrees Celsius. And this is the annual mean temperature. One I discussed about annual maximum temperature, annual minimum temperature. This is the mean temperature. Mean temperature is also increasing by 0.169 degrees Celsius per 10 years. And this is the normal pattern of rainfall over India and mostly West Coast India. Like here, we expect more than 300 rainfall. This is the mostly excess rainfall occurs over the West Coast, and the leeward side of the Western Ghat mostly very less rainfall. Even in the West Rajasthan also we get less rainfall comparatively in comparison to the different part of the India. And this is the percentage departure of rainfall. If we see the most here, this is the blue color. After this line, it represents the excess rainfall year over all India monsoon rainfall excess years, and red color here, this is after this line, it indicates that the deficient rainfall year of all India monsoon. And in between this, they are normal rainfall over this. You can see, if we see this, there was a positive trend, decadal positive trend over this part over the year 1971 to 1980. But after that, we are finding a decreasing trend in all India monsoon rainfall. And all India monsoon rainfall as well as India June, July, August, September rainfall do not show any significant trend. However, the significant trends are major shift and major shift in rainfall pattern are being noticed in the smaller spatial scale that I'll be discussing. If you see this figure here, this is the orange color. This is the decreasing trend of annual monsoon rainfall over these regions. This orange color represents the decreasing trend, which is very significantly, it is decreasing. However, this red color, it is 99% decreasing trend. This is the, it is observed that this is decreasing. However, these parts, the rainfall is mostly normal. And if you see the coastal Saurashtra Kutch, it is indicating that is increasing trend. Increasing that is 95% is confidence level, so it is increasing. And also this dark green color, it is 99%, it is increasing this confidence level. If we check statistically, it is increasing. So some part it is increasing and some part it is decreasing. That is maybe due to the climate change and extreme weather events. So then we'll discuss about the extreme weather events, that is climate change. Firstly, these hazards range from increased risks to extreme weather, such as fatal heat waves, floods, storms, potentially more serious effect, injurious to infectious disease dynamics, shift to long-term drought condition in different part of the country. Secondly, health impact is there. Thirdly, there is risk are inadequate. And then the weather event, extreme weather events, which mainly changes in extreme matter most for the society and human health. With the warming climate, more high temperature heat wave is expected, while fires and other consequences, fewer cold extremes, more extreme in hydrological cycle like cyclone, drought, heavy rains, flood, intense storm, hurricane, tornadoes, and cyclones. So these are the effect of climate change. We can nicely see this, the Mumbai rainfall during 2005, this is 2017 also, and this year also there was a flood over Maharashtra, coastal Maharashtra, because of that may be because of the climate change. So now if we see the rainfall, how it is changing, if we see the light to moderate rainfall, we have here analyzed the data that is less than 64.4 millimeter rain, mostly trend is, there is no change in the trend. And even the rainfall between the 64.4 to 120, 4.4 millimeter rain, there is no trend, there is no, there is no significant trend. However, if we see the extremely heavy rainfall, when we think of rainfall greater than 124.4 mm rainfall and more, very heavy to extremely heavy rainfall, the intensities, the trend is increasing. That may be due to climate change. And if we see the spatial distribution, there is increasing trend in heavy to heavy rainfall, increasing trend is there. And this orange color dot indicates there is the increasing trend of very heavy rainfall, that is rainfall greater than 150 millimeter and more is increasing. However, the heavy rainfall like yellow dot, that is increasing but not significant. However, the decreasing trend of the frequency of moderate rain and light rain, we can see that is decreasing but not significant. This is heat wave are also extreme weather events having adverse impact on human health. Heat wave are the conditions with high surface air temperature and low humidity, and which persist for many days. That also is a very important factor as far as the life concern. Heat wave conditions, mostly the special distribution, intensity, frequency of heat wave condition mostly more in the northern part of the country, even some part of East India and some part of central Gujarat also. In Gujarat, central India also, in Gujarat also there is heat wave frequencies 2 to 4, and it is increasing significantly in the part of country. And this is the average duration of the heat wave, that is also duration of the heat wave is also increasing. If the heat wave condition is 1 or 2 days, then it's okay. But if the persistent is prolonged, then it has a very bad impact on the life of the any living beings. This is the heat wave. This is the duration and frequency. Mostly frequency is high over the northern part of the country, and frequency is also very high over the northern part of the country. And also we have discussed about the Gujarat. In Gujarat, the maximum temperature, minimum temperature, and mean temperature, these all are in increasing trend. And in Gujarat, if you consider the mean temperature, it is the trend is increasing as well as it is significant. However, in the maximum and minimum temperature, the trend is increasing. However, it is not significant. So if we see the frequency of the heat wave condition, we have also analyzed the station-wise, and we found in the last decade, like up to 2018, I have analyzed, and we found some stations are reporting there is increasing trend in the last decade. Heat waves are increasing. Similarly, the part of the South Gujarat and Saurashtra, the rainfall also is increasing. Average rainfall, the monsoonal rainfall is increasing, and also the cold wave is also increasing. The frequency of heavy rainfall event is also increasing. Then future climate projection for under different scenario. Then we all know IPCC model projection, and they are saying the temperatures are increasing, and it is observation also. Forecast is also giving, although there is a considerable uncertainty about the future. All the climate models indicate a rise trend in temperature by 2100, a rise of 1.8 to 4 degrees is expected. It's a model forecast, and higher value also cannot be ruled out. And this is the sea level rise is also that is expected. It is the model forecast. So we have to take precaution as the forecast is giving. And globally, hot day, hot nights, heat wave have become more frequent. Frequency of heavy precipitation event have increased over most land areas. Global average sea level rose at an average of 1.8 millimeter per year over 1961 to 2003 data. And also for the Gujarat region, the model are suggesting the temperature also will rise. There are different models, 4 models results are present here, and all different models are showing different, but all models are showing the temperature will rise either by 1 degree, 2 degree. For next 21 century, it may increase, but the value it is very difficult to say. So there are definitely certain risk factors there. More extreme weather events, the heat wave more frequent maybe, and more intense and longer duration, and air pollution increase the level of groundwater, and also Algerians. Then rapid glacier melting, that also is not ruled out. Disturbed rainfall pattern is getting disturbed as we are observing now also. The warmer temperature is also rising. Sea level is also rising. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. That was a very, very informative and insightful presentation. Now we shall move on to our next speaker of the session. Since this session has been very, very informative for everybody, it's going to be even more informative for the next session, which is for Dr. Bharat Maitreya. He's a professor of the Department of Botany, Bioinformatics, and Climate Change, School of Science, Gujarat University. Dr. Bharat is a professor, and he holds a PhD in botany from Maharaja Krishan Kumar Singhji Bhavnagar University. He was nominated as a member of the assessment committee for the revised merit and normal assessment scheme for the scientific and technical staff in Central Salt and Marine Chemical Research Institute, Bhavnagar. I would request Dr. Maitreya to give his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for my brief introduction. So, I am pleased to share my views on today's weather webinar, whether this tomorrow, this melting or maybe some kind of freezing us. So today, that from 6 p.m. onwards, so most of the eminent speakers, those who have a very good information regarding to this climate change and or meteorological data. So as a speaker from this Gujarat University, so myself, Professor Bharat Maitre, I am professor in botany, but with this botany subjects in my department, we have bioinformatics, climate change impact management, and also horticulture science. So with the subject of the botany, climate change, then bioinformatics, environment science, and horticulture, so the students, those who are completion of masters and after the research works, doing in this field. So in my university, where the students are coming for their research work as MPhil and PhD. So being an academician and for this, most of the participants were the students also which are joined in today's weather webinar. So we are discussing all the things regarding to this our geological data, also some kind of this temperature or maybe sea level rise and all this data. But ultimately, the rise on all of these temperatures or maybe some kind of this, melting situation or maybe freezing situations where we have to wait for that in the scenario of our planet. So today I share my content regarding to this mostly for the academic or maybe some knowledge and information purpose. So I will share my slides through them that we can understand and how this part which are included. So basically today's international weather webinar on it's tomorrow frozen or molten earth. So myself, Professor Bharat Maitre, I share my this presentations. So when the Earth formed about the 4.5 billion years ago, it would have been entirely molten due to the release of gravitational energy. At this time, the Earth became chemically differentiated, meaning that the heavy elements and notably iron and mostly in this particular portion of that in the center of this core where the nickel and mostly sank to the center to form the core, while relatively light elements remain in the mantle and the crust. This is the mostly when it's the formation of the earth. The Earth's interior, where we are said that the core and mantle stays molten because of heat from primary sources. The second heat sources is the heat from nuclear fission and from radioactive decay of heavy elements such as uranium, thorium, and potassium. This heat source augment the remaining heat from formation and they help keep it hot. Also, we are seeing that in our this Earth's surface and to the this atmospheric part where the different kind of gases and most of the greenhouse gases which are increase our temperature. Here they by this physical part of this in our planet by this Earth where the cosmos is concerned. So generally the rotation and then revolution of that our Earth around the sun. So generally this perpendicular to on the orbit mostly the 23 degree where the North Celestial Pole to the South Celestial Pole, where these three kind of celestial equator portions which over the sun area and move for that part. So generally 24-hour for that particular parts where the revolute and this rotation for these 364 or 65 days in a year. Just because of this rotation or revolution of that particularly around the sun and towards the sun. So generally the Earth's surface where the portions were direct to the sun, where the most of the part where we are saying that the sunlight strike most directly to this equator portion, and the low angle of incoming sunlight where the North Pole and the South Pole. These are the mostly in these geographical portions where we are think, or maybe then we have to knowledge about it. So generally that we are saying that on that rotation or maybe revolution, what are the effects on that part? So we say that the mostly in a day and night this situation which we have, then bulging of the earth at the equator and the flattening at the poles, and the deflection of the wind and ocean currents, also the tides conditions according to them, the apparent movement of all heavenly bodies from east to west part. So these are the effects and by the rotation movement of our earth around the sun. The world is the greatest mystery that humankind can never understand. It is a masterpiece of nature. It is characterized by varying patterns of weather that range from extreme coldness to extreme hotness. In between is what we call its moderate. The countries around the equator, for example, are characterized by extensive period of sun and rain. This is called the tropical climate. For countries above and below the equator, between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Cancer, have 4 weather patterns in a year, namely summer, winter, autumn, and spring. So most of the climatic condition or maybe weather part from that part, so temperature increase or decrease for that part, most of the concern with the animals or maybe plants or having such kind of this, most of these phenomenon like the phenology of their lifespan, which are according to this weather pattern. We have a cold, we have the hot season, we have the rainy season, and most of the living organism according to that weather impact. If you move towards the poles, about the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, these are icy places characterized by extremely low temperatures. So generally, it is not directly heated by the sun. Some of these places drop below freezing point. And when we are saying that, can you survive at such a place? So in this North or maybe South Pole, when we are seeing the Earth pictures, so that the white colors which are covered by that particular proportion. So formation of the glaciers, the snowfall or the snow compression at the top of glacier cause ice accumulations. Then the snow to the ice, the snowflakes are rounded and compressed by the pressure until they become glacial ice. Tributaries, like that smaller glaciers, join the flow, causing the main glacier to the grow size. The outflow area, where the outflow area, the glaciers loses because of the melting evaporation. So what is the melting? Water from the melted ice blocks become detached and the front of the glacier and the from icebergs. So generally, when we are seeing that mostly the poles of this Earth portions, where they are covered by these glaciers or maybe snow falls by these ices, So these are related to that information, that why do the glacier melt and what is the causes for that. So we are having that such kind of these rising temperatures, the CO2 emissions and the ocean warming. Generally, these also which are these composed of the most water bodies which we have, mostly the 71% of the water surface is covered on this earth area, and others which are continental, or maybe we are saying that this is land masses. So according to that, the matter which is concerned, where this its properties, where they are freezing and this melting point. So generally the boiling point 100 degrees Celsius of the water, or maybe 0 degrees Celsius for this water, for this freezing part. So the as a part of this matter, where we have the felt that the water which have a condition for that freezing, or maybe some kind of this melting process, and then the evaporation part is that. So this is the main phenomenon where we have this increase or decrease of the temperatures. Also we have the precipitations of for that particular part. So when the glaciers which are this melting, that what was the effect? It causes that sea level rise, then which very much impact on the climate, particularly climate which are on this moderate pattern as well. But when this phenomenon like this melting of the glaciers and this part, or maybe some kind of the heavy rain, maybe also. So these are the all this portion where we have felt that impact of the climate on that part. Then this appearance of the species, mostly the particular species who are adapted these particular conditions of the glacier or maybe icebergs. So due to them that this appearance, then the less the fresh water. And what are the solutions to avoid? So most of the scientists, those who are having knowledge about that, those who are having research works on it. So they're mostly the content where they are involved in that portion that they stop the climate change. Generally, it is created by this nature and natural phenomena, whether the human being concerned. So we are tribal level based to that we have to mitigate this kind of situation and to slow down the erosion for that particular path, increase that thickness of solution for the avoid melting glaciers, and also combine artificial the icebergs. So these are the where we have to be protect or the part of this ice part. When the concern with this temperature, because the portion where we are having such kind of this freezing or maybe molten part, so it's depend mostly on this the temperature portion. The year 2019 was the second warmest year in the 140 years record, with a global land and ocean surface temperature departure from average of 0.95 degrees Celsius. This value is only 0.4 degrees Celsius less than the record high value of this 0.99 degrees Celsius set in 2016 and 0.2 degrees Celsius higher than the now third highest value set in 2015. The 5 warmest year in the from this 1880 to 2019 record have all occurred since 2015, while 9 of the 10 warmest year have occurred since 2005. The year 2016 currently ranked as the first warmest year on the record, and the 1998 currently ranks as the 10th warmest year on record. The year 2019 marks the 53rd consecutive year since 1977 with global land and ocean temperatures at least nominally above the 20th century average. The global annual temperature has increased at an average rate of 0.7 degrees Celsius per decade since 1880, and over twice that rate, 0.18 degrees Celsius since 1981. Here there is some records or data for this particularly rank where the warmest period recorded from 1880 to 2019. And here you can see that in 2016, the warmest year which we have done this according to that second position 2019, 2015, 17, 18, 14, 10, 5. So according to from 2005 to 2019, which we have these situations, and before that in 1998, this kind of the situation which we have, that the warmest period which are recorded. And this particular anomalies from 0.99 degrees Celsius to the 0.65 degrees Celsius, which are here. Also some kind of this anomaly which I have in global portion, where the land is concerned and ocean is concerned, and also this the particularly average of the land and ocean portion. So warmest and the coolest portion which we are seeing here in this table, and from this data gather, where the warmest in 2016, where the land is concerned and ocean is concerned. Also the coolest part which is the land part in 1884 and in 1904, that which are the coolest in this ocean region. In northern hemisphere, that the land where the warmest in the fourth condition, that the 2016, and coolest in 1884, also which recorded that ocean where the warmest in 2019 and coolest in 1904. If there are concern of this land and ocean, where the 2016, 1904 or 1907, again it's warmest and the coolest regions. In southern hemisphere, that land which are recorded, that warmest in 2019 and coolest in 1917. Also in ocean part, that 2016 and 1909 and to 1911, where it's recorded the warmest and the coolest. Also the land and ocean, if we have gathering this data, and which we have this particular data preparation, that 2016 and to 1911 were the warmest and the coolest part. Also, we are seeing here the global land area in the record this level from 1951 to 2011, where the blue portion which was in the cold record, and the red portions in this first graph, which you are seeing that the water records. So generally from this in June temperature 2013 up to this, particularly the 5 highest percentage of record warm June global ocean temperature occurs since this 2010. So mostly the coolest portion or maybe cold records which we have seen here, that it is not mostly negligible this variation, but when you have this warm records, so this peak is high than the previous record. The warmest since 1891 on a longer time scale, global average surface temperature have risen at the rate of about 0.72 degrees Celsius per century. Here we've seen that the most of the part from 1890 to 2020, which we have gathered, that in the graphical portion, that it's seen that the temperature is all been rise. The 1901 to 2000 average combined land and ocean annual temperature is noted that the 13.9 degrees Celsius. The annually average land temperature for the same period is 8.5 degrees Celsius, and the long-term annually average sea surface temperature is 16.1 degrees Celsius. So these are the record of this particularly land area and the others. Now this table which has shown that most of these oceans is concerns, but the most of the water which are the water part where Earth is concerned. So at this particularly basin of this Atlantic and entire basin, that where this particularly northern hemisphere, maybe southern hemisphere, this is the first position of this, and the Indian Ocean the fifth, then this particularly Pacific, and this according to this world, these are the condition for that particular ocean heat content according to this data. Now mostly that all this data and this recorded, because each and every year, so each and every state or maybe country or maybe some kind of a district level, so mostly the measurement or they measure the particular temperature is there, minimum maximum temperature, day and night temperature is there. Also the season wise temperatures, also which we have the rainfall data, we have the specification particularly recorded data. Then also some kind of this wind data, wind direction data which we have. But according to this nature is concerns, so all this phenomenon with the weather process which are already going on. But what's the make the things change? So generally it climate change, that we have some causes and then effect, which we are been as a part of the concern of our the us and this regulating all this portion. So mostly that by our study and also some universities or research institute and the government officials and meteorological data which having some research works and this particularly data gathering and the information gathering. So it's such kind of this causes where we found that they are having impact on this climate change. So like this rapid industrializations. So most of these in the effluent which are released by this particular industries in the industrial zone, and then these greenhouse gases which we are increases. So one of these major part where the global warming is concerned due to this greenhouse gases and the release by this particularly this some industrialization process. So rapid industrialization process nearby this urban where this population is concerned, and when we have to be going for the developing country, that we need also it said. But one of the causes by this, then we are having some this energy uses. So nowadays the in a previous part of this in ancient age, when we are using that particularly the forest fire or maybe the fuel woods for that part, but now we can use this some kind of others energy sources for that. So from that part also we have certain climate change impact. Some agricultural practices when this crop pattern is concerned, and other portions where we are having such kind of where this either it is in the form of this microorganism part, or maybe some kind of this agricultural practices there. So we have some particular climate change from that portion also. Deforestation is a major part which we are having, because generally we seen that in our state, also in our nation, or maybe as an international part. So by this by mankind, this situation of this particularly for this major and minor products, they have to gather from this forest part, but as well as some kind of this timbers which are needed for this furnitures and home building. So the deforestation activity is there. Also, we notice that some of this continent where the most of the forest of the part where the forest fires is occurs. So lakhs of the acres or lakhs of these kilometer squares area where having this we are losing this tree from this forest of this part. So deforestation is a major part where there's the CO2 which are concerned, or maybe carbon dioxide sequestration is concerned. So it is a major impact role by this particular deforestation. Then the consumer practice, then livestock, then the transport. Nowadays, most of the transport vehicles which we are having this CNG, so some kind of this natural gases which we are utilized for this fuel portion for our this vehicle part. But it is also one of the major causes for this climate change. Then resource extractions. So when with the natural resources which are occurring on this earth portion, then if we are having such kind of this resource extractions to certain levels, so it is impact on that. And major part where this pollution is concerned, either it is air pollution or maybe water pollution and other pollutions which were having these causes of the climate change. So from that climate change and the causes for that part, so which are impact on that particularly all the tech. So the rising temperature is the major part where we are seeing that by means of this all these causes where have this climate change. So the rising temperature, it's rising the sea level also, because then the icebergs or maybe some kind of this ice portions which are melting, which are into the particular this portion. Also the evaporation rate of that particular water surface bodies, like maybe rivers or maybe spring or maybe wetlands or maybe ocean or seas. So generally the surface of this water portion evaporate, and when we have that particularly rain part or precipitation in this particular area, and we have this fresh water from that in a particular monsoon season or maybe unwanted monsoon part, rainy season, and this water, the fresh water which we have from that part. So also, which is giving this rising sea levels. Then the weather patterns were which are changed, because in mostly which we are seeing that in our Indian monsoon, that up to June to the September, which we have mostly the very much rainfall here. But nowadays we are having some kind of this in December, January to March month, where we have also the rainfall. Also the some of the season where the particular three distinct season in our nation, that the winter, summer and monsoon. But nowadays the summer portion, or maybe increase in the temperatures we felt also in this winter also, and also in the monsoon portion which we have. So the increase in the extreme weather event, also the land degradation is also concerned, because this urban development portions and most of the part also which we have some kind of industrial or refineries also in a sea level portion, so that this part or maybe coastal part which we are affected, and loss of wildlife and biodiversity. Because of this, when you are having such kind of mostly it interrupt in this particular ecosystem, so we are lost this wildlife ecosystem. So if we are not controlling the ecosystems, any kind of this living organism from this ecosystem we lost, so it's a major loss for us. So these are the most of the effect which we have. So according to this continuously this process, where the freezing part is there, also the melting part is there, also the some climate changes there. So then we are saying that the two pictures here which we have, that I, you and we, that think that which part which we have to see in according to on the earth level. So I hope that all of you that and I myself also, that the green portion which we have did we needed for that, and on the earth part, mostly the blue green portion which we have, if they are, so it is very helpful for us. So from this Nanoland, this which gives this opportunity for this today's weather webinar. So the clear-cut message for the all of you, and for the population or maybe peoples of this world, that if we are go for the green, go for the blue. So not by this heating portion, this yellow we want. So it is more helping our nature, and we from this nature we create this our reserve better future. So thank you Nanoland, thank you Dr. Rajesh Acharya for giving such opportunities to me for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maitreya. That was a very fantastic presentation. It was very relevant to our theme of today's seminar. Now, we've been listening to the eminent speakers deliberated in the areas of climate change since evening. All of these valuable insights give us a new perspective that one should adopt in their practice. Encouragement, enthusiasm, excellency is a major aspect of this webinar. Now I request Mr. Zarnesh Kanogia to appraise this gathering with his vote of thanks. Mr. Zarnesh Kanogia works as a scientific officer at Nanoland. He's a postgraduate in climate change impacts management from the School of Science, Gujarat University. Zarnesh is mainly focused on research generally associated with paleoclimate, biodiversity, glaciers, climatic wildlife. He's also a filmmaker and a wildlife photographer and a nature conservationist. Now I request Mr. Zarnesh to deliver his vote of thanks.
Thank you, Masihullah. Very good evening to everyone. So on behalf of Nanoland and its Tomorrow News and the entire fraternity of the organization, extend a very hearty welcome to all the speakers for gracing our important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today on It's Tomorrow, Frozen or Molten Earth. It was surely an informative one. I might want to say thanks to Dr. Rajeshkumar Acharya, Chief Scientific Advisor at Nanoland, for welcoming our speakers and organizing this webinar, which is no doubt a visionary attempt. Dr. Acharya's vision and dream have helped Nanoland to become what it is today. Coming out with such an adroit idea to educate people about climate change and its application was obviously a reverent decision. I would like to extend my appreciation to Mr. Fitrian, Ardiansyah, Global Envoy for Natural Based Solutions, for conveying such a proactive speech and presentation. Next, I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Mr. Azhan Hassan, Consultant Infrastructure Turner and Townsend LLC Qatar, Climate Change Advisor, Qatar Ministry of Municipality and Environment for conferring us the information on climate change. Further, I am grateful to Ms. Diana Yesuraj, lecturer at Natural and Applied Sciences University of Dubai. Ms. Diana gave a helpful and significant presentation. I would like to express our sincere thanks to Dr. Narayan Dhakal, Climate Action Research, Education and Outreach Consultant, Diversity Intelligence in Climate Action, for delivering such a breathtaking presentation. Now, I wish to express my gratitude to Ms. Kanak Gokarn, Junior Officer, Climate and Energy Action, ICLEI, for delivering such a magnificent presentation. I would now like to thank Ms. Dita Mutiara, Program Officer, Research Center for Climate Change, University of Indonesia, for taking her time out for this webinar. And I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Manorama Mohanty for participating in this webinar and giving the breathtaking giveaways. I would be appreciative towards Ms. Juhi Bansal, Climate Change Consultant at United Nations Environment Program, Indian Office. She explained her topic very well. I am thankful to her for her participation. Lastly, I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Bharat Maitre, Professor, Department of Botany, Bioinformatics and Climate Change, School of Science, Gujarat University, for displaying such a magnificent presentation and being a part of this webinar. Unfortunately, Dr. Himanshu Pandya, Vice Chancellor of Gujarat University, he was not able to join us due to some emergency work. We hope to have him in our future webinars. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to LD College of Engineering, Gujarat Technological University and Xavier Research Foundation for co-organizing this webinar and making it a success. In the end, I would like to thank our participants who have patiently been a good audience all through the webinar and without whom this online webinar would not have been possible. Much appreciated a lot, everyone. Taking everything into account, I should thank all of the individuals who have upheld us directly or indirectly in the smooth working of this webinar till the end. We have planned such interesting webinars in the future too. We need your full participation. Thank you, people. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Zarnesh. Thank you so much. In closing this webinar, I wish to express my gratitude to all the panelists and participants for their full cooperation. It offers me a chance to commemorate our success in pursuing excellence in the field of science. We are privileged to have in attendance such distinguished experts, as well as observers, having such resourceful and knowledgeable researchers who have helped us to gain such valuable insights about our climate. With this, we sum up our session. Wish everyone to stay home and safe. Thank you for joining, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day. Have a great night. Goodbye.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.